The story begins with a young man reluctantly playing an otome game, a dating simulator where the main objective is to romance a cast of characters. He absolutely despises every second of it. His younger sister forced him to finish the game before leaving on vacation because she wanted to unlock a special voice recording that only becomes available after completing it. If he refused, she threatened to expose one of his embarrassing secrets to their mother. As if that weren't bad enough, the game is packed with things that have absolutely nothing to do with romance. Instead of simply pursuing love interests, players have to fight battles, participate in races, explore dangerous areas, and complete countless tedious tasks that only make the experience more frustrating. The world is filled with wealthy snobs, arrogant nobles, cynical jerks, and insufferable elites. To make matters worse, women hold all the power in society. They're overwhelmingly strong, incredibly unpleasant, and can even have as many lovers as they please. By the time he's nearing the end, the poor guy is loudly declaring that he hates this game with every fiber of his being. And guess what? He actually beats it. He doesn't even care that he had to spend a ridiculous amount of real money to cheese his way through the hardest parts. And guess what happens next? Exhausted after finally clearing the game, the poor idiot falls down the stairs and dies. But guess what? He opens his eyes once again. He's been reincarnated. At first, he has no idea where he is, but he's soon greeted by people who appear to be his family. His father immediately scolds him for trying to run away on an important day. The reason? A noble woman had come to visit their home. She never misses an opportunity to remind everyone that the Bartfort family, our protagonist's family, is incredibly fortunate. Even though they're nothing more than common farmers, they're technically barons, holders of the lowest noble title, all because Leon's father married that unpleasant old woman. Eventually, the hateful hag leaves, and our protagonist has a conversation with his older brother. His brother explains that if Leon ever hopes to marry, he'd better study hard so he can attend the academy. He also reveals that women have become so dominant in this society that men barely have any place in it anymore. That's when all the pieces finally come together. Our protagonist realizes exactly where he is. He has been reincarnated as Leon Faux Bartfort, a mere farmer living inside the very Otome game that indirectly caused his death. Several years pass, and Leon notices something strange. The Bartfort family never existed in the original game. That leads him to conclude that he's nothing more than a background character. Before his memories faded, he had carefully written down everything he could remember about the game's story, determined to use that knowledge to build himself a comfortable life. Since the game's plot eventually leads to wars and large-scale conflicts, he never stops training. Still, living as an insignificant side character has made him dream of a quiet, peaceful life where no one pays him any attention. Or at least, that was the plan. The insufferable old hag returns with terrible news. His marriage has already been arranged, and not just with anyone. His future bride is a 50-year-old woman who has been married 7 times, and every single one of her husbands died in battle. Leon desperately argues that the proper path is to attend the academy and find a wife there like everyone else, but the old woman immediately crushes that dream, explaining that attending the academy costs a fortune, and she's certainly not wasting that kind of money on the 3rd son of her husband's mistress. Needless to say, the two absolutely can't stand each other. In fact, if Leon refuses the marriage, she fully intends to send him off to war instead. But if money is the only obstacle, Leon already knows exactly how to solve that problem. The miserable old witch reluctantly gives him the chance to earn the necessary funds before disappearing from his sight. Meanwhile, Leon asks his father for help with a special request. Before long, the two of them set off aboard a flying ship toward a destination only Leon knows. Unfortunately, disaster strikes. A massive tornado tears their ship apart, swallowing Leon whole. When he finally wakes up, he realizes he has somehow arrived exactly where he wanted, though his poor father's ship certainly didn't survive the journey. Without wasting any time, Leon ventures deeper into the ruins, where he's immediately confronted by a guardian robot. Despite the intimidating appearance of the machine, he defeats it without much difficulty. Nearby, he discovers the body of a long-dead soldier and takes an access card from the corpse. At last, we learn what he's been searching for all this time: an ancient warship. Back when he played the game, Leon purchased this overpowered ship with premium currency to make clearing the game much easier. As he ventures farther inside, another robot suddenly attacks him on sight, identifying him as an intruder. Leon panics. His weapon doesn't work, and strangely enough, the robot remains incredibly polite while trying to kill him. Apparently, it has simply gone far too long without speaking to anyone. Poor guy. The machine eventually captures Leon and asks him what year it is according to the solar calendar. Leon has never even heard of that calendar. The answer tells the robot everything it needs to know. Its civilization lost. The ancient humans were wiped out by the new humanity, a race capable of using magic. Now that its mission has been confirmed, it resumes trying to eliminate Leon. Fortunately, Leon uses the robot's lengthy speech against it, driving his sword straight into its only weak point. The victory comes at a heavy cost. The robot leaves Leon critically wounded, barely clinging to life. When he finally reaches the ancient ship, it speaks to him as well. The AI refuses to allow someone from the new humanity to use it. However, after scanning Leon's body, it discovers something unexpected. Although he's technically part of the new humanity, he also possesses traits inherited from the ancient race. That discovery immediately captures the AI's interest. It grants Leon full access to the vessel and asks him to choose a name. Leon names it Luxian. Afterward, Leon tells Luxian everything. He explains that they're living inside one of the worst Otome games ever created, a horribly unbalanced game where the only realistic way to win is by spending ridiculous amounts of money. As Leon reflects on everything that's happened, he begins recalling his previous life. The wounds inflicted by the Guardian robot have pushed him to the brink of death, and he honestly believes he doesn't have much time left. His only hope is that, if he dies again, maybe the next world will be better. 3 months pass without anyone seeing Leon. During a family meeting, the horrible old woman declares him dead. His father, however, stubbornly refuses to give up hope. Then, a tremendous roar echoes outside. Everyone rushes out to investigate. Standing before them is none other than Leon himself. He's returned, not only with an incredible ancient airship, but with an enormous fortune as well. The old hag can hardly believe her eyes. Leon, meanwhile, simply flashes a wicked grin. After amassing such unbelievable wealth, he easily cancels his arranged marriage, and just as he planned from the very beginning, he finally earns his place at the academy. Making that old witch look like a complete fool put Leon in an incredibly good mood. Since then, he's been keeping himself busy. He bought his own floating island, became independent, and was officially granted the title of Knight. Luxian, now taking the form of a small floating orb that follows him everywhere, suggests turning the island into a tourist destination. Their first project, building a hot spring resort, which is already under construction. At this point, Leon only has one dream left: find a wife and spend the rest of his life enjoying the peaceful countryside. Unfortunately, things don't go according to plan. His noble rank is suddenly raised to Baron after clearing an unexplored dungeon and discovering a floating island. While that sounds like great news, it comes with one huge problem. Now he's expected to marry a woman of equally high status. Someone like that old hag, for example. Just thinking about it is enough to make Leon burst into tears. Anyway, it's finally time to enroll in the academy. He'll spend the next 3 years learning noble etiquette, adventuring, magic, and of course, trying to find himself a wife. The outlook isn't exactly promising, considering how men are treated in this world. We also get our first look at the game's 5 princes, the very same guys Leon has hated for the past 10 years. Then there's Angelica, also known as the rich villainess. She's the daughter of the Duke, the most powerful noble after the royal family, and serves as the game's main rival to the heroine. Even so, Leon has no intention of getting involved with any of them. His goal is simple: stay out of the spotlight and live a quiet life. That plan immediately runs into trouble. Leon witnesses a strange scene where a girl slaps one of the princes and delivers a line that, in the original game, was supposed to be spoken by the heroine. The problem is, that girl isn't the heroine. Naturally, this leaves Leon completely confused. Later, Leon meets 2 fellow students named Daniel and Raymond. They seem like decent guys, and together they discuss one of the academy's most important traditions: tea parties. These gatherings aren't just for socializing, they're essential for meeting potential marriage candidates. In fact, if word spreads that you can't host a proper tea party, your chances of ever getting married practically disappear. As they're talking, the princes become the center of attention as girls swarm around them. Angelica also appears, acting like the perfect fiancé to the crown prince. But the atmosphere changes the moment the prince calls over Marie, the same girl who slapped him earlier, and invites her to his tea party instead. Angelica immediately objects. After all, she's his fiancé. The prince couldn't care less. He declares that he'll live however he wants and that Angelica has no right to interfere. Once again, Leon notices something strange. Marie has stolen yet another scene that originally belonged to the game's heroine. Later, Leon attends his etiquette class, where they're taught the proper way to host a formal tea party. At first, he thinks the lesson is a complete joke, until his tea ceremony instructor completely changes his perspective. By the end of the class, Leon has developed a genuine appreciation for tea parties. His newfound passion is put to the test when he hosts his very first one. Luxian doubts that anyone will actually show up. Still, Leon invites the second daughter of a baron. She does come, along with all of her obnoxious friends. The girls devour every bit of food Leon carefully prepared, then immediately leave without another word. Yeah, that didn't exactly go as planned. XD. Even so, Leon's love and respect for his tea ceremony teacher remains stronger than ever. Just then, a commotion outside catches his attention. When he goes to investigate, he finds several girls bullying the game's actual heroine before they quickly run away. Her name is Olivia. Leon knows he shouldn't get involved with the main story, but he can't bring himself to ignore her. So he invites Olivia to his tea party. She happily accepts, enjoying every bite of the food with such pure excitement that Leon can't help but smile. Olivia admits she's still unsure whether she truly belongs at the academy. As a commoner who received a scholarship, there are countless customs and noble traditions she simply doesn't understand. That's when we're introduced to Leon's younger sister in this world. She reluctantly agrees to help Olivia, although she's incredibly arrogant despite living off her brother's support. Still, she does explain one important rule. Every class has a student with the highest social standing, and newcomers are expected to greet that person first. If they can't approach them directly, they must ask someone from that person's inner circle for an introduction, usually by bribing them with an expensive gift. Since Olivia obviously can't afford that, Leon lends her the money. Everything goes surprisingly well. As it turns out, the highest-ranking student in Olivia's class is none other than Angelica herself. Contrary to her reputation, Angelica treats Olivia fairly kindly. She simply tells her that as long as she understands her place, she'll have no problems quietly attending class. Then Angelica asks who taught her the proper etiquette. When Olivia answers that it was Leon, Angelica becomes intrigued. After all, earning a noble title through personal achievements is no easy feat. Soon afterward, everyone heads to exploration class. Their assignment is to descend several floors into a dungeon. Just before the exercise begins, the prince, Angelica, and Marie start arguing once again. Olivia explains that Marie is the daughter of a poor viscount. Lately, she's been bullied even more than Olivia herself. The reason? She's constantly trying to stay close to the prince, and he clearly enjoys her company. In this world, women generally hold authority over men. The only exception is the royal family. Ignoring the drama, Leon and Olivia continue with their assignment. Still, Leon can't stop thinking that the less time he spends around Olivia, the better. It's nothing personal. He simply doesn't want to get dragged into the game's main storyline. Along the way, they run into giant ants and several other monsters. Before things become dangerous, the princes suddenly appear and deal with them with ease. One of them receives a small scratch during the battle, and Marie secretly heals the wound with magic before asking him to keep her abilities a secret. Rather than questioning it, the prince simply smiles. The real problem comes moments later. Angelica accidentally shoves Marie while trying to confront her. That single incident pushes the prince over the edge. Without even listening to Angelica's explanation, he turns his back on his own fiancée and walks away with Marie instead. As a result, Angelica's standing takes a serious hit. Leon is also injured during the expedition, but Olivia heals him with her own magic. Seeing that only deepens his suspicions. Things are no longer unfolding the way they're supposed to. Something about Marie just isn't right. The jealousy surrounding how much attention Marie was receiving eventually pushed the other students too far. They began bullying her, even going as far as burning her belongings. Since Angelica was always confronting Marie, she naturally became the prime suspect. The crown prince confronted her directly, demanding that she stop approaching both him and Marie. He reminded Angelica that their engagement had been arranged outside the academy and that she had no right to interfere with his personal affairs. All Angelica could do was hold back her tears and agree to his request. News about Marie quickly spread throughout the academy, eventually reaching Leon while he was enjoying tea with Daniel and Raymond. Curious, Leon later meets Olivia in the library and asks if she knows anything else about Marie. Olivia mistakenly assumes Leon has developed a crush on her, but the horrified look on his face shuts that idea down immediately. Anyway, Olivia explains that she once tried introducing herself to Marie, only to be told that she hated girls like her. Once again, Leon's suspicions continue to grow. Just then, they hear a loud noise nearby. Leon rushes outside to investigate, only to find Marie kissing the purple-haired prince. Yeah, I still don't remember any of the prince's names, but that hardly matters. For the first time, we get to see things from Marie's perspective. Internally, she's laughing. She's amused by how Julius, the blue-haired crown prince, became so furious that everyone immediately stopped bullying her. A moment later, Julius and the green-haired prince, Jilk, arrive to see her. Feeling sorry that she doesn't even have a personal servant, they decide to give her one as a gift so she won't feel lonely anymore. Meanwhile, Marie simply thinks about how she's going to enjoy this world to the fullest, and just like Leon, she's also a reincarnator who knows everything about the game. When Angelica learns that Julius actually gifted Marie a servant, she's absolutely devastated. After all, she was literally raised to serve Julius. She grew up by his side. She dedicated her entire life to supporting him. She loves him with all her heart. Yet despite all of that, he chooses a complete stranger over her. Before long, the rumors about Julius and Marie spread across the entire academy like wildfire. Even Leon's sister hears about it. She immediately warns him to stay out of the situation no matter what. One day, Julius will become king. If you're on his good side, your future is guaranteed. But if you make an enemy of him, your future is over. Leon understands perfectly. Even so, the moment his sister leaves, he quietly asks Luxian to investigate both Angelica and Marie. Sometime later, the academy holds a grand gala. This event is famous because even lower-ranking frontier nobles often manage to find future wives here. Naturally, Leon, Daniel, and Raymond decide to give it their best shot. The result? They get rejected, brutally. Right in the middle of their heartbreak, Olivia rushes over to Leon with urgent news. Apparently, Angelica caught Marie holding hands with someone who wasn't even Julius, and another huge argument broke out during the party. Angelica desperately tries to warn everyone that Marie isn't the kind-hearted girl they all believe she is. Instead of listening, the princes immediately jump to Marie's defense once again. Each of them begins listing all of Marie's wonderful qualities and explaining exactly why they're willing to protect her. Finally, Angelica reaches her breaking point. In front of everyone, she openly declares that Julius is in love with Marie. Fed up with all the whispers and gossip mocking her for losing her fiancé, she throws one of her gloves directly at Marie. A duel. In noble society, picking up the glove means accepting the challenge. Since neither woman will fight personally, their chosen representatives will battle in their place. Naturally, Julius and the other four princes immediately volunteer to fight for Marie. That means whoever represents Angelica will have to face all five of them. Challenging the crown prince alone is already considered political suicide. Taking on all five of the academy's strongest fighters? That's basically a death sentence. As a result, not a single person is willing to stand beside Angelica. Watching everything unfold reminds Leon of what originally happened in the game. Angelica loses the duel, gets disowned, and is eventually forced into a miserable marriage with a cruel landowner. It's not that Leon particularly likes her or anything, but as he watches those idiots standing there, he realizes one thing. He truly hates every single one of them, so he walks forward and volunteers to fight on Angelica's behalf. Thanks to Luxian's investigation, and after seeing Marie's behavior firsthand, Leon has already figured out the truth. Marie is another reincarnator. Leon has zero patience for Julius's dramatic speeches or the other's self-righteous nonsense. Instead, he immediately asks the only question that actually matters. How will the duel work, and what's at stake? Angelica's only wish is simple. She wants Marie to stay away from Julius. Marie responds with a line Leon instantly recognizes from the original game. Just stop doing bad things. After that, the rules are decided. The duel will take place inside the Academy's Coliseum using giant-powered armor. Since the princes are considered the 5 strongest fighters in the Academy, everyone confidently assumes Leon doesn't stand a chance. They laugh right in his face. Leon couldn't care less. He keeps provoking them over and over. At one point, he even tells them that if they wanted to win with words, they should have challenged him to a debate instead. His constant trash talk only makes the crowd hate him even more. Even Daniel and Raymond are pressured into publicly insulting Leon just to avoid upsetting the prince's supporters. Leon simply laughs. He's amazed by how far people are willing to go just to earn Julius's approval. When betting for the duel opens, almost everyone puts their money on the princes. Only a handful of people bet on Leon, including Leon himself, because he's completely convinced he's going to win. Later, Angelica privately asks Leon to withdraw from the duel after hearing how badly everyone has been treating him. She also reveals that her own family scolded her for recklessly demanding the duel. In fact, she's already lost most of her political influence because of it. Leon immediately corrects her. He didn't accept the duel to earn favor with the Duke. He's simply tired of desperately trying to find a wife, and now he just wants to beat the living daylights out of the 5 idiots he can't stand. Finally, the day of the duel arrives. Leon equips a custom suit designed by Luxian and prepares for battle. Olivia shows up to cheer him on. Leon jokingly asks if she bet any money on him. With complete innocence, she replies that gambling is wrong, so she didn't place any bets. Soon, everyone takes their positions inside the Coliseum. 5 enormous, beautifully decorated armors stand proudly on the prince's side. Meanwhile, the entire audience is booing Leon. He simply mocks the crowd. At least Daniel and Raymond still believe he'll win. Angelica starts wondering where Leon's armor is. Then, something descends from the sky. Luxian delivers Leon's personal armor, Arrogance. It's unbelievably ugly. So ugly, in fact, that everyone bursts into laughter, including Leon himself. Before the duel begins, Leon asks both Olivia and Angelica to trust him and simply watch. Climbing into his armor, Leon gets everything ready alongside Luxian. One thing still bothers him, though: the name. Curious, he asks why the armor is called Arrogance. Luxian's response: it's the perfect name for someone like you. The first match begins against the purple-haired prince, Brad. Brad spends the opening moments running his mouth, only to be completely ignored. Meanwhile, Leon discovers one tiny problem. Luxian replaced his sword with a shovel. Yep, a shovel. And with that very shovel, Leon knocks Brad out in a single hit. The entire Coliseum falls silent. Well, almost everyone. His beloved tea ceremony instructor immediately starts applauding, making his favorite student happier than anyone else in the arena. Anyway, the next challenger is Greg. Just like Brad, he starts with a whole speech. Blah, blah, blah. Smack! Another swing of the shovel. Then another, and another. Leon proceeds to slap Greg around with the shovel until he's sent crashing to the ground. Of course, our protagonist might be just a little bit sadistic. He has an absolute blast destroying Greg's armor while making fun of him the entire time. After his armor is wrecked, Greg climbs back out, determined to keep fighting. Leon simply shakes his head. Unlike spoiled nobles like Greg and the others, he doesn't enjoy bullying people who are already weaker than him. The referee immediately awards Leon the second round. Meanwhile, the audience continues insulting him for being unbefitting of a gentleman. The third opponent is Chris, a master swordsman. Unfortunately for him, he's just another target for Leon's non-stop trash talk. Leon shatters Chris's sword and forces him to admit defeat. During a short break before the remaining matches, Leon's sister suddenly appears. She tells Olivia and Angelica that Leon looks sick, prompting the two girls to rush over and check on him. Leon can't help but laugh. The idea that his sister would actually worry about him seems completely impossible, and sure enough, as soon as the girls leave, Luxian reveals the truth. His sister secretly planted a bomb inside Leon's armor, following orders from his next opponent. Honestly, Leon isn't even surprised. She's probably just embarrassed that her own brother dared to challenge the crown prince. The fourth battle begins. Jilk immediately detonates the hidden explosives. Nothing happens. Arrogance doesn't even have a scratch. For the first time, Jilk completely loses his composure. Unlike the others, he absolutely cannot afford to lose. He swore an oath to protect the prince. Growing desperate, Jilk starts threatening Leon, warning that opposing the future king will only bring disaster upon his family. Leon calmly records everything he says, then smiles. He promises to show both Julius and Marie exactly what kind of person Jilk really is. A second later, whack! One more swing of the shovel. Jilk crashes into the ground. 4 victories. 4 effortless victories. Now, only one opponent remains: Julius. Meanwhile, Marie is silently panicking. Nothing is going according to the game's original story. Everything is falling apart. The crowd just keeps praising Julius, convinced that the prince is about to turn the tables. Meanwhile, our favorite farmer couldn't be more confident after completely crushing the other 4 princes. The final match begins. Unlike the others, Julius actually manages to withstand Leon's attacks. That doesn't stop Leon from constantly mocking the 4 losers he already defeated, hoping to get under Julius's skin. Their exchange also reveals why Julius dislikes Angelica so much. According to him, she's just like every other noblewoman in the royal palace. He never wanted to be royalty in the first place. The reason he loves Marie is because she's the only person who accepted him for who he truly is. Julius then turns his attention toward Leon, accusing him of enjoying humiliating his opponents. To him, Leon is nothing more than an arrogant nobody who got lucky enough to find an overpowered suit of armor. Leon absolutely loves hearing that. The feeling of crushing the cockroaches standing in front of him fills him with pure satisfaction. You're right, Leon admits. I am arrogant, but I'm the arrogant guy all of you just lost to. Then he asks Julius one simple question. So, what's it feel like losing to someone beneath your rank? Leon doesn't stop there. He tears straight into the prince. Julius keeps complaining about the burden of being royalty, but he's never experienced what the real world is actually like. Leon nearly got sold off by that disgusting old hag. He almost died trying to earn his freedom. He's had to beg girls just to give him the time of day, only to be treated like trash anyway. A spoiled prince like you has no idea what it's like to get beaten up just for talking to a girl. Those words strike a nerve. The male students watching from the audience can't help but tear up. They know exactly what Leon is talking about. Even after hearing all of that, Julius refuses to back down. He declares that if Leon wants to stop him, he'll have to kill him, because what he feels for Marie is real. Hearing those words, Angelica finally understands. She realizes Julius is telling the truth. All she can do is cry. But then Olivia steps forward. She shouts for everyone to hear that just because Julius truly loves Marie doesn't mean Angelica's love was any less genuine. Angelica spent the entire duel suffering in silence. No matter how painful it became, she never looked away from Julius. So Julius has no right to claim she was just like everyone else. Her feelings were real too, and that worthless prince still argues back. He insists Angelica never loved the real him. Because of that, he never wants her to come near him again. That finally pushes Leon over the edge. He humiliates Julius in front of the entire arena. If you're going to hide behind your own life, Leon says, then of course I can't kill a prince. So if that's really how you want to play this, then order me to lose. After all, you're still the prince. And that's pretty funny coming from someone who claims he never wanted that title. Julius has no choice but to attack. Even then, Leon gives him one final chance. He warns Julius that if he insists on choosing Marie, he'll lose his right to inherit the throne. Julius doesn't hesitate for even a second. He chooses Marie anyway. As long as he's with her, he believes he'll be happy. At that point, Leon has had enough. He unleashes one final attack. The blast completely destroys Julius's armor, knocking the prince unconscious. Leon wins the duel, fair and square, although the audience is anything but happy about it. Later, Angelica visits Julius while he's recovering. After a heartfelt conversation, she finally accepts his decision. She quietly wishes him happiness with Marie and says goodbye. Meanwhile, Leon has a much bigger problem. He publicly humiliated the royal family. Realizing just how much trouble he's in, he immediately rushes to ask the Redgrave family for help. The only thing he wants is to survive and make sure his family doesn't suffer because of what he did. The person listening to him is none other than Angelica's father, the Duke of Redgrave. The Duke tells Leon he'll do the bare minimum necessary to protect him. After all, Leon fought on behalf of his daughter. Leon even offers to surrender both his noble title and his entire fortune. Naturally, the Duke asks him why he risked everything in the first place. Leon obviously can't admit that he simply wanted to beat up the princes because he hated them, so instead, he claims he did it for the good of the kingdom. He couldn't stand by while that woman continued deceiving his highness. The Duke bursts into laughter. He says Leon's answer is admirable. He also reveals that he officially dissolved Angelica's engagement to Julius. In his eyes, the prince is no longer worthy of his daughter. I really like this old man. The Duke has one final favor to ask. Since Angelica is surely exhausted after everything she's been through, would Leon allow her to stay at his countryside estate for a while? Soon afterward, Angelica and Olivia spend some time together, talking about everything that happened. Angelica feels guilty over Leon's situation. She believes he was expelled from the academy because of her. What's worse, she never even thanked him properly after he won. She immediately ran to Julius instead. As Olivia comforts her, Leon quietly listens from nearby with Luxian. The AI suggests he should go say something. Leon has absolutely no intention of doing that. Luxian's response: "You truly are the definition of a terrible person." A little later, Leon's family prepares to welcome Angelica to their home. Unfortunately, that cheap-looking old witch shows up first, complaining about everything Leon has done. Perfect timing. Angelica arrives moments later. The old hag has no idea who she is, until she learns she's the daughter of the Redgrave family. The woman's face instantly turns pale. She hurriedly runs away before she gets herself into trouble. Leon can't help applauding as she flees. Later, the girls take a walk around Leon's estate and discover the hot springs he built. Naturally, the conversation eventually turns toward him. Angelica assumes Leon and Olivia are dating. Olivia immediately denies it, saying Leon is way out of her league. The two girls continue chatting, and Olivia asks Leon to start calling her Livia. Not wanting to be left out, Angelica requests that everyone call her her Ange. Yeah, I'm still calling them Olivia and Angelica. Angelica then admits she still thinks she's a terrible person. She can't stop imagining ways to get revenge on Marie. She believes that if people knew those thoughts, no one would ever want to be her friend. Leon, being the lovable sadist that he is, immediately tells her he fully supports her revenge. In fact, he even tells her the best possible way to get revenge. Find your own happiness. Trying to make someone else miserable is just a waste of time. That time would be much better spent making yourself happy. His surprisingly heartfelt advice moves both girls. Olivia wholeheartedly agrees. Meanwhile, things aren't exactly going well for Marie. Every single prince is officially removed from the line of succession. Marie is left completely speechless. The former princes, however, don't seem too upset. Now that they've all lost their royal status, they happily declare that they're finally equals and can stay together forever. Unfortunately for Marie, every dream she had of living a luxurious life goes straight down the drain. Back on Leon's side, it turns out his family has nothing to worry about after all. Something completely unexpected happens. Leon is granted an official court rank. A mustache noble congratulates him on his promotion. Leon has now been awarded the 6th rank within the royal court. Needless to say, he's absolutely miserable about it. Still, he has no choice but to accept. To make matters even crazier, the title is personally bestowed upon him by the king and queen themselves. As an added bonus, his promotion also prevents him from being expelled from the academy. Skipping ahead a bit, the academy is getting ready for its annual school festival, giving us our first look at Olivia and Angelica's beautiful festival outfits. The campus is packed with noise. The reason? The 5 former princes decided to open their own cafe for the event, and every girl at the academy is completely obsessed with it. Unfortunately, Leon's little business ends up being totally overshadowed since it's located right next door. To make things even worse, the princes are charging ridiculous prices for the simplest things imaginable. A cup of tea, a few cookies, everything costs a fortune. Leon gets curious and decides to take a look for himself. Sure enough, the place is incredibly elegant. Then Marie shows up, smugly claiming that their cafe is obviously going to be far more popular than Leon's. Yada yada yada. Later, Olivia goes around trying to attract customers. Unfortunately, the academy is still full of people whose combined brainpower couldn't outmatch Dalem's. They immediately start mocking her for being poor and constantly remind her that she's nothing more than a commoner. Thankfully, a girl named Carla suddenly appears and shows genuine interest in Leon's cafe. Since that was only the preparation day, we skip ahead to the actual festival the following morning. Everyone is both excited and incredibly nervous. Then, Angelica receives an unexpected invitation. Someone wants to see her, none other than the queen herself. She decided to visit the academy and wanted someone to accompany her during the tour. Her name is Mylene. She's kind-hearted, treats Angelica with genuine affection despite everything that happened with her idiot son, and carries herself with incredible grace. Speaking of Julius, Mylene also wants to meet Leon, not as the queen, but as a mother. Even though the duel was entirely Julius's fault, she still wants to have an honest conversation with Leon, so they head straight toward his cafe. The moment they open the door, they walk into complete chaos. Leon is currently being harassed by a noblewoman who barged in without warning. Despite all the obvious insults, Leon does his best not to respond. Angelica, however, has had enough. She immediately steps in to defend him. Apparently, the woman comes from an influential noble family that has been feuding with the Redgraves for years. Olivia also tries to help, only to become the woman's next target. She viciously attacks every one of Olivia's insecurities. At the end of the day, Olivia is still just a scholarship student, a commoner, someone who doesn't belong among nobles. According to her, Olivia is nothing more than Angelica's pampered little pet. Angelica desperately tries to stop the verbal abuse, but the woman just keeps going. Finally, Leon snaps. He tells her to shut her mouth. One of the woman's servants immediately slaps him across the face. At that point, things are only seconds away from turning bloody. Then, a commanding voice echoes through the room. "That's enough!" Mylene herself orders everyone to stop. Not recognizing the queen, the arrogant noblewoman actually calls her an old lady. Angelica is about to reveal her identity, but Leon beats her to it. He secretly reinforces his body with magic, then punches every single one of the woman's servants square in the face. His excuse? Simple. He recognized the queen immediately. So naturally. He was just protecting Her Majesty from a bunch of disrespectful idiots. Since Leon is completely out of control, there's only one person capable of calming him down, his beloved tea ceremony instructor. Of course, after everything settles down, Leon apologizes to Mylene for the disturbance. But now that he actually takes a proper look at her, he realizes something. She's absolutely gorgeous. The two quickly clear up any lingering tension surrounding Julius and end up on surprisingly good terms. Mylene also mentions that she never attended this academy herself because she came from another country. That's why she wanted to create a few memories while visiting. The old Leon would have probably replied, "Go make them yourself, old lady," but Mylene is simply too beautiful and far too kind. Leon immediately agrees to accompany her. Then, for reasons known only to him, he suddenly stands up and proposes marriage. Olivia and Angelica completely lose their minds. Leon realizes how insane this sounds, but considering all the crazy women running around this academy, he'd honestly rather marry a beautiful woman in her 30s. "I just want to marry an actual human being." Unfortunately, that's exactly when Julius walks in. The first thing he sees is his greatest rival proposing to his own mother. Naturally, he punches Leon in the face. Julius, then drags Mylene away. Back inside the prince's luxurious cafe, Julius warns his mother to stay away from Leon. According to him, Leon is a coward who's only interested in money. Mylene couldn't disagree more. Instead, she scolds Julius for insulting Leon. She's also quick to point out the obvious hypocrisy. Julius is the one charging outrageous prices at his own cafe, and he's even serving alcohol there. Meanwhile, Marie is hiding in the background because she's terrified of the queen. Mylene doesn't let the issue go. She reminds Julius that after the duel, he agreed to stay away from Marie. Yet there he is, still following her around like a loyal puppy. She immediately demands that Marie come out and face her. After all that drama finally dies down, Carla visits Leon's cafe. Leon isn't exactly in the mood to work. His heart has been completely shattered. Apparently, Carla specifically asked Olivia to introduce her to him. It turns out she went through all that trouble because she desperately needs Leon's help. She even drops to her knees. Her request is simple. She wants Leon to save the Wayne family. Leon agrees to Carla's request, promising to help her family during the upcoming vacation. His only reason for accepting isn't Carla herself, it's Olivia. Since Olivia personally introduced Carla to him, turning the request down would only damage Olivia's reputation. So, Leon decides to help. As for his cafe, let's just say business wasn't exactly booming. Fortunately, Leon comes up with another way to make money. A racing tournament is about to begin, and he plans to get rich by betting on the results. Sure enough, his bets pay off. One of the competitors is none other than Jilk, the green-haired prince. Despite everyone targeting him and constantly playing dirty, Jilk somehow manages to win the race, making Leon even richer in the process. Unfortunately, Jilk's victory comes at a price. He ends up with a broken leg. Meanwhile, Marie is crying, not because he's injured, but because they lost the prize money. Classy. While everyone's gathered around Jilk, a young noblewoman arrives just to mock him. Her name is Clarice. As it turns out, she's the one responsible for his broken leg. After Jilk broke off their engagement, Clarice swore revenge and has been making his life miserable ever since. Leon remembers her from the original game as the perfect honor student. Reality, however, is very different. Clarice openly declares that she'll keep tormenting Jilk for as long as she can. Jilk calmly replies that she can do whatever she wants, as long as she leaves Marie alone. Meanwhile, Marie keeps trying to act like the innocent, sweet heroine. The problem is, she scares way too easily. Watching her reminds Leon of his little sister from his previous life. Jilk stubbornly refuses to withdraw from the remaining races despite his broken leg. That's when Marie decides to stir up trouble. She smugly suggests that Leon should take Jilk's place. Otherwise, the first-year students won't have anyone representing them, and somehow, that would become Angelica's responsibility. By one of those unbelievable coincidences only anime can pull off, Angelica happens to be part of the committee organizing the tournament. If she failed to prepare a replacement, everyone would question the abilities of the Duke's daughter. That leaves Leon with no choice. Since he still owes the Duke a huge favor, he agrees to race. We jump straight to the next event. The crowd's favorite competitor walks over to greet Leon. His name is Dan. He's incredibly popular, and even he can't believe that the infamous shovel guy who humiliated the princes is replacing Jilk. Dan doesn't have anything against Leon. He simply has no intention of losing. The reason? He deeply admires Clarice. Her family owns one of the largest racing circuits in the kingdom. She always supported Jilk wholeheartedly, yet when he decided to end their engagement, he didn't even have the courage to tell her face to face. He dumped her through a letter. After hearing that story, Leon can't help but sympathize with Dan. The two quickly become friends. Even so, neither of them plans on holding back during the race. Before it begins, Luxtion finishes upgrading Leon's bike. Leon can barely contain his excitement. He's looking forward to seeing the faces of everyone who thinks he's about to lose. The race begins, but while Leon is busy competing, something much more important is happening elsewhere. That same obnoxious noblewoman shows up again. She walks over to Olivia and Angelica and immediately starts insulting Olivia for being a commoner. Then she shifts her attention toward Angelica. She begins bringing up Angelica's past, claiming that she used to look down on commoners. According to her, Angelica treated ordinary people like nothing more than disposable numbers. The woman keeps twisting the knife, planting doubts inside Olivia's mind. She even suggests that Angelica secretly enjoys watching Olivia struggle. Those cruel words overwhelm Olivia. She runs away in tears. Angelica hesitates. Does she even have the right to chase after her? After all, everything that woman said about her past was true. She really used to think that way. Eventually, Angelica reaches her limit. She slaps the woman across the face and tells her to shut up once and for all. The two immediately start fighting. Meanwhile, back at the race, here's the short version. Everyone gangs up on Leon. They try to ram him off the track. They cheat. They sabotage him. They do everything possible to make him lose. None of it works. Leon wins the race anyway. Unfortunately, the moment he crosses the finish line, his bike explodes. Mid-air, Leon plummets toward the ground, convinced he's about to die, only for Dan to swoop in and save him. Looks like they're officially best buddies now. Later, Leon visits Jilk to proudly show off his victory. He also reminds Jilk that he now owes him a favor. Jilk agrees to grant whatever request Leon wants. No one expects Leon's answer. Instead of asking for money or rewards, he tells Jilk to sincerely apologize to Clarice. Jilk does exactly that. Clarice immediately slaps him across the face, and everyone lived happily ever after. Well, not exactly. Clarice still feels deeply hurt and humiliated. She decides she never wants anything to do with Jilk ever again. Even so, both she and Dan genuinely genuinely thank Leon for helping them. That gratitude ends up paying off. Clarice is the one who tells Leon everything that happened between Angelica and Olivia. Without wasting any time, Leon goes looking for Olivia. He eventually finds her sitting alone on a bench. The two quietly begin talking. Olivia wonders whether she and Angelica could ever truly become friends. After all, their social status is completely different. She asks Leon what he thinks. Leon gives her an honest answer. It won't be easy. They come from completely different worlds. They have almost nothing in common. In fact, looking back, it's surprising they got along as well as they did. Leon even points out that Angelica probably only started spending time with them because she lost so many of her followers after everything that happened. That comment immediately upsets Olivia. She insists Angelica isn't that kind of person. Leon smiles. If that's what you truly believe, then you've already had your answer all along. Those simple words give Olivia the courage she needed. She decides to try one more time. While Olivia is lost in thought back in her room, someone knocks on her door. It's Carla. She has another favor to ask. She wants Olivia to join Leon's expedition. Just as Olivia is about to refuse, that crazy witch shows up right behind Carla. Yep, things just got a whole lot worse. The woman threatens Olivia into participating, warning that refusing would only bring trouble to everyone around her. As if that weren't enough, she once again tears into Olivia emotionally, and even gets a little physical this time. Like I said, she's completely insane. Meanwhile, Leon is making preparations to help Carla's family. After learning more about the mission, he realizes there's no backing out anymore. According to the game's original story, Olivia becomes the saint after obtaining 3 sacred relics: the sacred bracelet, the sacred staff, and finally, the sacred necklace. As fate would have it, the pirates Leon is supposed to defeat are the ones currently in possession of the final relic. Leon also knows something else. Thanks to both the game and everything that's happened recently, he's figured out who's really pulling the strings behind this entire mission: that disgusting noblewoman. The more Leon gets involved with events from the game's main storyline, the stranger everything becomes. He wants to fix it all. After all, the good ending is supposed to involve Olivia ending up with one of the princes. Luxian, however, points out something everyone watching is probably already thinking. At this rate, Leon is far more likely to become Olivia's love interest himself. Leon immediately rejects the idea. In his mind, he's nothing more than a mob character, a background extra, someone who should never interfere with the main story. There's no way someone like him could ever become the heroine's romantic partner. Ironically, without even realizing it, Leon has become incredibly protective of Olivia. He's constantly solving her problems himself, never giving her the chance to grow stronger on her own. Eventually, the day of the expedition arrives, and Leon is greeted with a couple of unpleasant surprises. First, he's forced to let 2 of those plastic princes board his airship. Great. Second, Olivia looks absolutely miserable. Meanwhile, Angelica visits Olivia's room, only to find the aftermath of everything that horrible woman did to her. As if on cue, the witch herself appears, mocking Angelica and casually suggesting that her precious little pet might not survive the pirate mission. Angelica has completely run out of patience. She openly threatens the woman and tells her to cut the nonsense. Then she rushes off, hoping to warn Leon before it's too late. Meanwhile, Leon is peacefully trying to get along with the red-haired prince and the purple-haired prince. Their conversation isn't particularly important until they mention someone Leon immediately recognizes: the Black Knight, a boss who killed him countless times back when he played the game. There's no time to think about it, though. The pirates finally appear. Leon immediately jumps into arrogance and heads straight into battle. The pirates underestimate him, a mistake they quickly come to regret. Leon crushes them one after another without breaking a sweat. The entire battle is over in record time. The pirates don't have any choice. They raise the white flag. They surrender. The red-haired and purple-haired princes help however they can, and after witnessing Leon fight firsthand, they finally begin to understand just how terrifying he really is. Everything seems to be going perfectly until they arrive at the Wayne family's estate. The moment they land, they're surrounded. Weapons are pointed directly at them. Everyone is ordered to raise their hands. Mr. Wayne, Carla's father, recognizes the purple-haired prince and immediately demands an explanation. After hearing what happened, he's completely confused. Things become even stranger when Carla accuses Olivia of exaggerating everything. According to Carla, she only wanted Leon's advice. Leon isn't buying it for a second. He immediately steps in to defend Olivia. Carla asked him for help dealing with the pirates. That was the original request. The argument continues until Carla finally breaks down in tears. Then, she confesses everything, including who ordered her to do all of this. That same disgusting noblewoman. With the truth finally exposed, everyone heads back. During the return trip, Leon tries to address Olivia's emotional state. She's completely broken. Olivia starts believing Leon only helped her because he had some hidden agenda. She's become so emotionally exhausted that she even convinces herself the only reason anyone could possibly care about her is because of her body. Leon quickly tells her that's not true. Ironically, that only makes her feel even worse. If not even that, then what am I good for? She compares herself to Angelica. Angelica is beautiful, elegant, the perfect noble lady. Meanwhile, Olivia doesn't want to be treated like someone's pet or a possession. She genuinely wanted to become Angelica's friend, not her loyal little dog. Listening to her, Leon finally realizes something. This is his fault. From the very beginning, he only got involved with Olivia because she was was the game's heroine, because she was destined to become the saint. Without realizing it, he never truly saw her as simply Olivia. Everything that happened only reinforces Leon's decision to distance himself from Olivia. Now he has even more reasons to stay away. He convinces himself that he's simply looking at the situation objectively. Luxian, however, completely disagrees. He bluntly tells Leon that despite everything he says, he's been treating Olivia like a pet all along, and that everything happening now is Leon's own fault. Those words hit a little too close to home. Leon gets so frustrated that he punches Luxian, not because he actually wants to hurt him, he just needs to vent. While he's trying to sort through his thoughts, the purple-haired prince shows up. He doesn't even bother hiding the look of disgust on his face. The two spend some time practicing with their swords. During the sparring session, Leon learns something important, not only about Brad, but about the other princes as well. They never stop trying to improve themselves, all because of Marie. Leon, on the other hand, keeps looking backward instead of moving forward. It isn't long before the pirates attack again. Another airship appears on the horizon. This time, they're here to avenge the comrades Leon defeated earlier. They open the battle by launching a barrage of bombs. Everyone immediately prepares for combat. The purple-haired prince and the red-haired prince volunteer to help. They even bow their heads and ask Leon to let them fight alongside him. In response, Leon lends them spare suits of powered armor. Meanwhile, Olivia, still reflecting on everything that's happened, notices the battle raging outside. Without thinking, she runs out to help. Somehow, she has absolutely no plan. She just knows she wants to do something. Several support robots under Luxian's command try to stop her from putting herself in danger. But then, something strange happens. With nothing more than her voice, Olivia freezes every single robot in place. Unfortunately, she barely has time to react before one of the pirates notices her and launches an attack. The red-haired prince and the purple-haired prince immediately rush in to protect her. The problem is, their opponent is far stronger than either of them. Even so, neither prince has any intention of abandoning Olivia. Watching the scene unfold, Leon suddenly realizes something. This is exactly how things are supposed to be. This is the original story. Those two were always meant to be Olivia's potential love interests, not him. He has no place standing beside her. Even so, he still can't ignore the situation. Leon charges straight toward the pirate and takes him down himself. The problem is, the sheer brutality of his attack ends up frightening Olivia. Later, Leon finds Olivia healing the injured purple-haired prince. Because of the conclusions he's reached, he awkwardly comments that the two of them make a nice couple. Yeah, he really messed that one up. He even stops calling her Livia, the nickname they had agreed on. Instead, he goes back to addressing her as Olivia. The poor girl is completely crushed. She can't even respond. All she can do is cry. It's not that Leon hates her. He makes that very clear later while talking with Luxian after the battle. He simply doesn't want to interfere with the story anymore. At the end of the day, he still believes he's nothing more than a background character. The one silver lining is that Luxian uncovers evidence proving that the disgusting noblewoman was the mastermind behind everything that happened. Just then, an airship bearing the Redgrave family's crest arrives. Leon immediately assumes Angelica sent reinforcements. Afterward, Leon deliberately gives all the credit for defeating the pirates to the princes. He's hoping their families will reconsider disinheriting them. Why? Because he believes they'll be the ones protecting Olivia from now on. Angelica also learns what happened between Leon and Olivia. The moment she sees him, she slaps him across the face for making Olivia cry. Olivia is completely heartbroken. Her expression says more than words ever could. Even Angelica starts wondering whether the three of them can ever go back to the way things used to be. Oh, and one more thing. As a token of gratitude, Brad and Greg help arrange yet another promotion for Leon's noble rank. As if that weren't enough, Clarice's father also decides to reward him for helping his daughter. He sends Leon a brand new motorcycle, along with a personal letter promising yet another promotion once Leon graduates from the academy. Exactly the kind of attention Leon never wanted in the first place. Thanks to his latest promotion, Leon suddenly becomes one of the academy's most desirable bachelors. Of course, the girls aren't interested in him, they're interested in his title. Realizing that only leaves Leon feeling depressed. As for his relationships with Olivia and Angelica, things are still awkward. The academy organizes a field trip, and even though the three of them are assigned to the same group, they're barely speaking to each other. Still, by pure coincidence, or maybe just anime logic, they all end up meeting inside a temple during a local festival. A shrine maiden welcomes them and invites everyone to offer a prayer. Leon, being Leon, couldn't care less about acting dignified. Instead, he sincerely prays for one thing. Please let me marry a mature woman. Someone caring, someone sensible, and maybe a little spicy. Smack. Angelica immediately punches him for saying something so ridiculous inside a sacred temple. Afterward, everyone receives a lucky charm that enhances a specific attribute. Leon ends up with one that slightly improves his combat ability. Later, while Leon is finally enjoying a peaceful break, yet another prince comes over to bother him. Unfortunately, that's the least of his problems. An enormous swarm of flying monsters suddenly appears, heading straight for their airship. Leon immediately realizes something is terribly wrong. This battle is supposed to happen near the very end of the game. There's absolutely no reason for it to be happening this early. The situation grows even worse when a gigantic warship appears overhead. Olivia and the others rush outside to see what's happening. The moment Angelica sees one of the passengers, her face changes completely. She recognizes the girl immediately. It's the princess of the Phanos principality, a nation that broke away from the kingdom years ago. She isn't here to negotiate, she's here to declare war. The enemy quickly decides to take the academy students hostage. Because of her status as the highest-ranking noble present, Angelica volunteers to become the only hostage in exchange for everyone else's safety. The mustached commander accepts the offer. Leon immediately steps in to stop her. Big mistake. The commander orders the other students to beat Leon down, and they obey without hesitation. Olivia tries to protect him, only to get hit as well. Leon is knocked unconscious and thrown into a makeshift prison cell. Sometime later, Olivia comes to visit him. She's frustrated, heartbroken. She hates how powerless she's become. Leon, meanwhile, has absolutely no idea how to comfort a crying girl. Still, seeing someone cry because they're genuinely worried about another person strikes him as something incredibly beautiful. Unfortunately, there's no time to dwell on it. The blue-haired prince arrives with urgent news. The enemy's real plan is simple. They're going to execute every single student, keeping only Angelica alive as a hostage. Honestly, Leon expected as much. The prince lowers his head and asks Leon for help. Leon immediately refuses, not if only a handful of people are willing to fight. The prince tries convincing the other students to join them, but nobody steps forward. Fed up with their cowardice, Leon walks outside. He fires a shotgun into the air. Bang! The entire crowd falls silent. Leon glares at every one of them. You're all trash. Using his newly earned noble authority, he orders every student to prepare for battle. If you're going to die, then die fighting. Needless to say, nobody appreciates that speech. Leon continues anyway. He promises that he'll be fighting on the front lines himself. Because unlike the rest of you, I'm actually worthy of being called a noble. One girl takes particular offense to that. She's the daughter of an influential count and proudly demands that Leon show some respect to her family. Leon completely shuts her down. He's willing to acknowledge that her ancestors were honorable nobles. Her generation, not even close. The moment Angelica volunteered to become a hostage, every single one of them sighed with relief. They were perfectly content hiding in safety while someone else sacrificed herself. None of them possessed the courage or the honor that their adventurous ancestors once had. They're merely living off the glory of previous generations, and now, through their own cowardice, they're replacing that proud legacy with shame. Future generations won't remember them as heroes. They'll remember them as the nobles who chose to run instead of fight. Those words finally reach them. One by one, the students begin finding the courage to stand and fight. At the end of the day, even they still have a little pride left to protect. As for the Count's daughter, well, Leon somehow managed to leave a very different kind of impression on her. Anyway, the curtain is finally rising on the next great battle. Leon readies himself alongside the others and marches straight onto the battlefield. Of course, Leon isn't charging into battle without a plan. Thanks to his knowledge of the game, he already knows the enemy princess possesses a magical flute capable of controlling monsters, so his objective is simple: take the flute away. With Luxian supporting him, Leon charges straight toward the enemy flagship, while the academy students struggle to hold back the endless waves of monsters. Watching from aboard the enemy ship, Angelica sees everyone risking their lives to save her. Even so, the princess and the mustached commander remain completely confident. They send even more monsters after the students. Then they begin bombarding them from above. The students who had finally found the courage to fight start believing they're about to die. In the middle of all that chaos, Olivia reaches her breaking point. The thought of everyone getting hurt after coming so far overwhelms her. She cries out with all her heart. At that exact moment, the charm she received at the temple begins to glow. A massive barrier instantly expands around the battlefield, protecting every single student from the bombardment, and she doesn't stop there. Somehow, Olivia unleashes an enormous wave of magic that wipes out a huge portion of the enemy forces. The saint has finally awakened. Even Leon is left speechless by the sheer power she displays. Luxian explains why this happened. Ironically, it's all because of Leon. By constantly protecting Olivia, he unknowingly gave her the chance to focus on studying and understanding her abilities. Because of that, she was finally able to unlock her true power. Meanwhile, Leon crashes directly into the enemy flagship. The mustached commander laughs, convinced Leon just got himself killed by entering through the wrong section of the ship. Angelica panics. She genuinely believes Leon is gone. A second later, the floor beneath them explodes. Leon bursts straight through the deck with his machine. Before attacking, he casually tells Angelica to duck. She does. Everyone else gets flattened. Once the dust settles, Leon jumps off his bike and knocks the mustached commander unconscious with a single punch. Then he turns toward the princess. This time, she's the hostage. The princess immediately tries to deceive Leon. Too bad, he's not that easy to fool. While she's distracted, Luxian quietly snatches away her magical flute. Leon and the others successfully leave the flagship. The attacks finally stop. The enemy fleet is informed that the princess has been captured. Unfortunately, the former mustached commander couldn't care less. Using the communication system, he announces that the princess willingly sacrificed herself for the good of the principality. Even worse, the princess herself agrees. She releases every monster she had under her control. The moment she loses control, all of those monsters immediately turn against her own forces. At this point, Olivia has completely exhausted her magic. Leon is once again forced to fight the entire battlefield almost by himself. This time, however, Angelica uses the power of her own charm to support Leon from a distance. While doing so, she notices Olivia is barely able to stand. She pushed herself herself far beyond her limits. At that moment, neither of them cares about their previous argument anymore. They finally understand each other. With tears streaming down their faces, the two girls reconcile with a heartfelt embrace. Unfortunately, the touching moment doesn't last. A sudden attack sends Angelica flying toward the edge of the airship. She's about to fall. Olivia refuses to let her go. Using the last bit of strength she has left, she grabs hold of Angelica. Another attack shakes the ship. Olivia succeeds in saving Angelica, but sacrifices herself in the process. She falls into the open sky. Oddly enough, she isn't afraid. She knows Leon will come for her, and he does. Leon catches Olivia safely in his arms. For a brief moment, everything feels perfect. Then, Leon accidentally calls her Olivia instead of Livia. Big mistake. She immediately gets angry. The two start arguing in midair. Olivia demands that he call her Livia again. Leon keeps insisting that she'd be happier with one of the princes, that they're better suited for her. Olivia couldn't care less. She looks him straight in the eyes and tells him she doesn't want anyone else. She only wants him. Even now, Leon stubbornly insists that he's nothing more than a background character, a mere extra in someone else's story. Olivia has finally had enough of hearing that nonsense, so she says it plainly. She confesses her love. Leon doesn't really answer her the way she hoped, but he does grant her one wish. He smiles and calls her Livia once again. The two return to the others. The battle, however, is far from over. Right on cue, Leon's massive warship arrives under Luxian's control. Moments later, Arrogans is deployed onto the battlefield as well. Leon is finally ready to wipe out the remaining enemy forces. Unfortunately, the former mustached commander still has one last trump card waiting. Standing before Leon is the one opponent he never wanted to face again, the Black Knight, and he's ready for battle. The final battle begins without wasting a single second. For the first time in a long while, Leon is genuinely nervous. He's usually overflowing with confidence. That's just how terrifying the Black Knight really is. The man's reputation speaks for itself. He's a legendary warrior feared across the entire kingdom. The two immediately clash. Steel collides with steel as Leon and Luxian desperately work out a strategy. After all, Leon already defeated this guy back in the game. He knows there has to be a way to win. Unfortunately, things don't go according to plan. Against all expectations, the Black Knight slices straight through Arrogans. The difference isn't just experience. There's another reason Leon is at a disadvantage. Throughout this entire story, he's always fought with one goal in mind: defeat his opponents, not kill them. The Black Knight, on the other hand, has no such hesitation. The battle becomes increasingly one-sided. Leon is pushed back over and over again. It's obvious the Black Knight is the superior swordsman, but if there's one thing Leon has over him, it's his ability to think on the fly. He comes up with a risky plan. He lets the Black Knight believe he's won. The enemy's sword pierces straight through Arrogance, only for Leon to suddenly burst out of the cockpit with a shotgun in hand. One blast later, the Black Knight is forced out of his own armor as well. Even then, the former mustached commander refuses to surrender. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, he fires a special flare that attracts an absurd number of monsters. Unfortunately for him, Leon is always 2 steps ahead. Luxian had already positioned their battleship high above the battlefield. Within seconds, a rain of lasers wipes out the entire monster horde. Seeing that everything is lost, the Black Knight stubbornly asks Leon to execute him. He demands that Leon take his head. Leon simply shrugs. "I don't need the head of an old man with prostate problems." Instead, he decides to imprison him and keep his armor. As for the former mustached commander, Leon isn't exactly merciful. After listening to the man's pathetic begging, he confiscates everything aboard the enemy fleet, every last bit of it. With the war finally over, all that's left is getting some well-deserved rest. When Leon returns to his room, he finds Olivia and Angelica fast asleep inside. A few days later, Angelica reports everything that happened to her older brother. His reaction? He immediately starts encouraging her to marry Leon, or at the very least, he plants the idea in her head. After all, Leon just keeps earning achievements and climbing the ranks of nobility. Before long, the three friends meet up again. This time, their bond feels stronger than ever. Leon also reveals that he credited the victory over the Black Knight to the blue-haired prince who fought alongside him. Naturally, he only did it to avoid drawing more attention to himself. The last thing Leon wants is another promotion. Olivia and Angelica finally get to meet Luxian as well. To their surprise, they both think the floating AI is actually adorable. Meanwhile, Marie and her little group blow an insane amount of money building an absolutely hideous suit of armor. Their brilliant idea? Use it to defeat Leon. They even choose Greg as its pilot. This time, however, Leon actually intends to lose. At this point, he doesn't care what Marie thinks anymore. After everything that's happened, he's finally realized that none of those princes deserve Olivia. The duel begins. Almost immediately, Luxian detects a critical problem. The new armor is about to explode. Leon quickly tries warning Greg. The problem is, Greg is just as stubborn as ever. Because it's Leon giving the warning, he refuses to listen and keeps attacking. Honestly, Leon almost feels bad for them. Ever since they were disinherited, they've worked incredibly hard to improve themselves. Even so, he's still forced to destroy their armor. And just like that, it falls apart. Nobody in the audience is even surprised anymore. As for Marie, she watches every coin she invested disappear right before her eyes. Eventually, the day of Leon's award ceremony arrives. He never expected so many people to attend. Then again, capturing the princess of an enemy nation tends to attract attention. After the ceremony, Leon runs into Olivia. Things have have been a little awkward ever since her confession, but Olivia isn't in a hurry. She gently tells Leon he'll have all the time he needs to figure out his answer. As for Leon, whether he likes it or not, he's now officially a Viscount, another promotion he never asked for. Still, he'll continue doing his best to survive in the absolute mess of a world he was reincarnated into. Leon was reincarnated into the Otome game he hated more than anything. Not as the hero, not as the prince, not even as the villain, but as a random NPC who wasn't even supposed to matter. Somehow, that background character ended up saving the entire kingdom, humiliating 5 princes, stopping a war, and completely derailing the game's original story. Yeah, Leon's plan to live a quiet life hasn't exactly been working out. After obtaining Luxian, the AI with a slight tendency toward genocide, everything started changing. The problem is, Leon has no idea how. The war with the principality was supposed to happen much later in the game, but he stopped it ahead of schedule, throwing the entire timeline into chaos. As if that wasn't enough, Luxian reminds him that he has been promoted again, and Leon reacts exactly the way you'd expect. Because in this kingdom, getting promoted doesn't mean more money or more freedom. It means more paperwork, more responsibilities, and more people expecting things from him. Exactly what he never wanted. At least he believes handing Princess Phanos over to the kingdom solved one of his biggest problems. Or, so he hopes. Luxian isn't nearly as optimistic. After all, they just revealed power that shouldn't even exist in this era. No one knows how the principality will respond now. So naturally, Luxian proposes the most reasonable solution imaginable: destroy humanity. Leon immediately shuts that idea down before the AI can start planning another genocide, deciding to worry about literally anything else instead. Later, he visits his family's home and notices something surprising. The place looks completely different. The money he sent back actually transformed the house. His father proudly explains that it's all thanks to Leon, and to his brand new title as a 4th-rank lower Viscount. Honestly, the old man couldn't be prouder. After all, his son went from being the family's least promising child to an actual Viscount. Not the strongest, not the richest, but definitely the one carrying this family's entire economy on his back. Leon has to admit, the renovations actually look pretty nice. Apparently, investing in Leon has a better return than the kingdom's economy. Unfortunately, that peaceful family reunion lasts about 12 seconds, because Leon's older brother immediately decides it's the perfect time to tease him. Apparently, rumors have already spread through the academy. Everyone knows Angelica, the former villainess who somehow became best girl, has taken quite an interest in Leon. The moment his brother brings her up, Leon immediately panics. Not because it isn't true, but because explaining his love life to his family somehow sounds even scarier than fighting another army. Before Leon can defend himself, their father completely ignores him. Instead, he turns toward Leon's older brother, asking when he plans to finally find a wife. The poor guy folds instantly. Apparently, romance runs in this family, as long as nobody actually wants to talk about it. Unfortunately, peace was never going to last, because right on cue, the family's personal disaster generator finally arrives. Jenna, dragging her Beastman servant behind her like she owns the entire kingdom. Actually, she probably thinks she does. The first thing she says isn't hello, it isn't welcome home, it isn't even how have you been. No, she immediately starts demanding that her servant gets his own room, because apparently, housing arrangements are humanity's biggest crisis right now. Leon's father doesn't even argue anymore. At this point, the man has unlocked the highest level of parenting, pretending Jenna is always right, mostly because arguing with her would probably shorten his lifespan. Leon just watches the entire scene, completely unimpressed, then asks the question everyone watching is already thinking: how did our sister end up like this? His brother simply sighs, because explaining Jenna would probably require its own 24-episode anime, and just when Leon thinks things can't possibly get any worse, the real final boss arrives, his mother. The moment she sees Leon, she doesn't congratulate him, she doesn't praise him, she doesn't even ask how he's doing. Instead, she immediately calls him her villainous son. Honestly, family affection in this household comes packaged with emotional damage. Leon fires back without missing a beat. Oh, you're still alive? Probably the least respectful greeting ever exchanged between a mother and her son. His brother immediately realizes this conversation is about to become incredibly expensive. But surprisingly, his mother didn't come here just to argue. She actually has business. Specifically, she wants something Leon recovered after defeating the Sky Pirates, the Holy Necklace, a sacred treasure that apparently belongs to the temple. Leon blinks in confusion, because according to kingdom law, anything recovered after defeating pirates legally belongs to whoever defeated them, meaning, as far as he's concerned, that necklace is his. End of discussion. The temple representatives obviously disagree. They insist the necklace carries the temple's crest, making it sacred property. Leon isn't exactly convinced, especially because nobody seemed interested in it until after he brought it home, almost like they suddenly remembered, oh right, we forgot to mention that's priceless. Before Leon can continue arguing, Luxian quietly interrupts him, and whenever the AI with genocidal tendencies suddenly tells you to calm down, you should probably listen. Leon asks why. Luxian gives a very short answer. We're surrounded. Leon looks up, and sure enough, several massive temple airships are floating directly above them. Apparently, the temple didn't come prepared for a discussion. They came prepared for a siege. Realizing this probably isn't the best hill to die on, Leon lets out one very tired sigh and hands over the necklace. Not because he lost the argument, but because starting another war over jewelry jewelry sounds like way too much paperwork. The priests happily receive the necklace, almost like they just recovered the Holy Grail itself, which immediately makes Leon realize something. Hold on, if they're willing to mobilize an entire fleet just to recover one necklace, then what exactly did he just hand back? And trust me, that's a question will get answered sooner than Leon would like. Back at the academy, Leon quickly realizes that his life has become far more complicated than he expected. His recent promotion has made him considerably more popular, but unfortunately, not for the reasons he would have preferred. As he walks through the campus, the other students cannot help but stare at him. Some admire how quickly he climbed the ranks of the nobility, while others simply wonder how someone who was supposed to be an insignificant background character managed to attract so much attention. Leon, however, is thinking about something completely different. Ever since discovering that Marie was another reincarnated person just like him, he has been unable to understand what she is trying to accomplish. If she already knows how the original game was supposed to unfold, then every decision she makes has the potential to change the future even further. That possibility worries him far more than anyone around him realizes. According to the original story, Olivia was destined to awaken as the Saint, inherit the sacred relic, and eventually defeat the final enemy alongside the game's 5 capture targets. That was the route that guaranteed the kingdom's survival. But now, almost every important event has already changed. The war happened far earlier than expected. Several key characters have completely altered their relationships, and Leon himself has become involved in events that were never supposed to concern him. If the story continues drifting away from its original course, there is a very real possibility that Olivia may never fulfill the role she was meant to play. And if that happens, Leon begins to wonder whether this world might actually be heading toward a disastrous ending. Trying to clear his mind, he returns to his room. The moment he opens the door, he is greeted by an enormous pile of colorful envelopes stacked almost everywhere. For a brief moment, he honestly has no idea what he's looking at. Lakshan calmly explains the situation. Nearly every single envelope is an invitation sent by female students. Leon can only stare in silence. Until recently, nobody wanted anything to do with him. Now, after becoming a viscount and earning fame throughout the kingdom, everyone suddenly seems interested in getting his attention. The sudden change is almost unbelievable. As he begins opening the invitations one by one, the contents quickly become repetitive. One invitation asks him to attend an elegant tea party within the next few days. Another already starts making plans for married life before they have even met. Some promise luxurious lifestyles, while others openly discuss the wealth and social status they expect their future husband to provide. The more letters Leon reads, the more convinced he becomes that very little has actually changed. Only people's attitudes toward him have. Without thinking twice, he gathers every single invitation together. Then, with complete indifference, he throws all of them into the fireplace. Within seconds, dozens of carefully written marriage proposals disappear into flames. Lakshan watches the scene quietly before asking whether Leon truly intends to reject every single invitation. Leon answers without hesitation. He has absolutely no interest in women who only became interested after seeing his title and fortune. Those kinds of relationships were never what he wanted. Lakshan then points out something Leon has been avoiding for quite some time. If that is the case, then Olivia and Angelica are clearly different. Unlike everyone else, both of them cared about Leon long before he gained his current status. Leon knows Lakshan is right. He has understood that for a long time. The real problem is not recognizing their feelings. It is figuring out what he should do about his own. Meanwhile, somewhere far away from the academy, another conversation is taking place. Within the Principality of Phanos, 2 of the kingdom's highest-ranking military leaders discuss the humiliating defeat they recently suffered. Not only did they lose Princess Hertrude, but they also failed to recover the magic flute that was essential to their plans. One of them openly admits that being defeated by a group of academy students is a disgrace he can barely accept. Yet what concerns them even more is a single young noble from the Holfert Kingdom, Leon. His name has already reached the highest levels of the principality. After hearing the reports about the battle, they realize he is no ordinary student. More importantly, they now know that someone possesses technology powerful enough to completely overturn the balance between nations. That realization forces them to begin reconsidering every future move they make. Back at the academy, Leon remains completely unaware that powerful enemies are already discussing him behind closed doors. Instead, he continues thinking about much more immediate problems. Like Olivia, the two walk together through the academy while casually talking about how they spent their winter break. Olivia happily explains that she stayed with Angelica during the vacation and learned many new things from her, including horseback riding and proper etiquette expected from high-ranking nobles. Listening to her, Leon cannot help but remember the original game once again. In that story, Angelica was supposed to become Olivia's greatest rival. She was introduced as the villainess who constantly bullied the heroine throughout the academy. Now, the two of them have become genuine friends. Every time Leon witnesses moments like these, he is reminded just how different this world has become from the game he once played. Olivia notices that Leon seems unusually quiet and asks whether something is bothering him. He simply smiles and tells her that he's only been thinking about a few things. But deep down, he cannot shake the feeling that every decision he makes continues pushing the story farther away from the future he remembers. And with every change, predicting what will happen next becomes a little more impossible. Far from the academy, the kingdom's highest officials gather to discuss Leon's growing influence after the recent conflict with the principality. While some nobles acknowledge that his achievements saved countless lives, others are far less comfortable with the amount of prestige he has accumulated in such a short time. One minister openly admits that Leon has already destroyed the principality's fleet, defeated the invading monster horde, and even forced the feared Black Knight to retreat. His military accomplishments are simply too significant to ignore, and many believe that someone with that level of strength could eventually become difficult for the royal court to control. Rather than rewarding him further, several members of the council begin searching for a way to keep him occupied while quietly monitoring his actions. One noble proposes sending Leon on an expedition under the pretext of helping the kingdom search for ancient treasures. At the same time, Princess Gertrude, who remains their prisoner, would accompany the mission, allowing the palace to keep a close watch on both of them without openly revealing its true intentions. Not everyone agrees with this plan. Some officials argue that confiscating Leon's possessions or restricting his freedom would violate the kingdom's own laws and damage the royal family's reputation. However, others insist that allowing such a talented noble to continue gaining influence unchecked could eventually become an even greater threat. After a lengthy discussion, the council finally reaches a compromise. Leon will be assigned to the expedition alongside the saint, officially to search for lost relics that could strengthen the kingdom. Behind that noble objective, however, lies a much more political purpose, keeping one of the kingdom's strongest individuals under careful observation. After this, we see the entire group boarding the ship for their next destination. While Marie boasts about looking like a saint, Leon from a distance can't help but think she's too conceited. Meanwhile, her assistant begins to suspect that so many people are there just to keep an eye on their master, and that they should start being more careful about what might happen. We quickly see Marie's group start making fun of Carla's outfit, but Marie asks them not to be so mean, and mentions that it actually suits her quite well. All the while, she watches Leon from a distance, knowing that her presence must be making him uncomfortable. She feels quite pleased knowing she's a nuisance to him. Leon, for his part, tries to talk to Kyle, but Kyle immediately rejects him, admitting that he doesn't speak to him, since after all he hates him completely. Leon still thinks that young people these days are very disrespectful. At that moment, his assistant asks him once again why there are so many comrades who clearly don't get along with him on this mission, to which Leon admits that it wasn't his idea, but rather the palace's, where he received the direct order to take so many to the floating island. By this point, Leon knows that he was surely ordered to be kept under surveillance after what happened last time. Since the last war had shown his full destructive potential, they shouldn't want someone so powerful running rampant. At that moment, Olivia arrives along with Angelica. Those who are very excited to see what treasures they might find remind Leon that the nobles of the kingdom were adventurers in ancient times, so the blood of his ancestors is present, which brings a smile to his face. Olivia is also curious about what kind of things they will find on the partner, so Leon reveals that there are enormous baths to enjoy. This attracts Jilk and Greg, who, to Leon's dismay, are there to accompany him, but they explain that they are actually there to protect Marie from any danger. Even so, none of this matters to Leon, who immediately demands that they not bother him or he won't let them bathe. But what the young man really cares about is knowing what Sarah is doing with them, and she only begins to get angry since they all seem to be too noisy. Leon can't forget that she's the Princess of Fanos, wielding a powerful magic flute, the same one that last time controlled countless beasts. But with the truce in place, her power is now entirely at the kingdom's mercy. This only makes Leon wonder if it's a good idea for her to explore with them, so it's most likely that her mission isn't exploration at all. At that moment, Marie wanted to know who the girl in front of her was. Jilk tells her that she's a princess, but now she could consider her an exchange student. Even so, Marie asks herself the same question as Leon, since it doesn't make any sense for a princess to be accompanying them. Angelica also demands an explanation of what's going on. Sarah simply ignores her and assures her that if she has any problems, she should talk to the people at the palace, but she doesn't think they'll pay much attention. Leon, for his part, knows perfectly well that the magic flute was confiscated and well guarded, so he assumes that as long as it's undisturbed, it shouldn't pose any problems and it wouldn't hurt to keep an eye on it. Although Sarah notices that Leon keeps staring at her, she asks him to stop looking at her lewdly. This makes no sense to Leon, who insists there isn't much to see even if he wanted to. This ends up angering Sarah. Once at the hot springs, both Olivia and Angelica are happy to finally enjoy a bath together, although while they're bathing, Angelica starts to get distracted by her companion's body. This behavior only bothers Marie and Sarah, who aren't as easily distracted. Shortly after, the group begins to see the floating island they're heading towards, so Marie orders everything to be prepared to land as soon as possible. She wants to acquire as many treasures as she can, but this doesn't make much sense to Sarah. After all, a saint shouldn't worry about money and shouldn't behave like one. But Marie immediately starts calling her pretentious, since, as a princess, money was never a necessity for her. However, Marie knows the pain of having nothing in her bank account, and the fact that her family goes into debt at every opportunity doesn't help her stay calm. Leon, for his part, begins to understand her a little better at this point, and even feels sorry for the problems Marie seems to be having. She She even reminds him of his sister from his past life. Now, almost at their destination, only one simple question remains: where to land? And although everyone is talking about treasure, Leon isn't far behind, since he knows very well that he could find extremely valuable lost objects. Kyle, at that moment, wants to be the one to guide everyone on their journey. After all, this island has too much vegetation, and it will be difficult to land. This clearly takes Leon by surprise, who doesn't understand why Kyle wants to guide them. It is then that the elf reveals that it is because it is the land where he was born. In a separate scene, we see a high-ranking member receive news that Leon is with the saint, and they will soon reach their destination. He only hopes that they can obtain what they so desire without too many problems. As soon as they land, Marie complains and tells Kyle that he should have mentioned this was his homeland, because she would have brought gifts if she knew before. Kyle ignores her concern and continues walking, simply saying that they don't need gifts. Olivia sees this and mentions to Leon that Kyle's behavior seems strange, since he doesn't seem glad to be back at all. Leon easily dismisses it and tells her that his behavior is always strange, so he's not worried at all. Olivia scolds him for being so mean, but he's more concerned about finding a way to question Marie properly. As they move forward, Angelica tells Gertrude that it'll be a long walk, so she should have waited at the port, since that's what Marie's followers are doing anyway. Gertrude simply tells her that she'll do what she wants and explains that she needs to inspect the island, and she'd also like to see these ruins said to contain treasure. Angelica just sighs and admits that she's rather willful for the princess of an enemy nation. Luxian then approaches Leon and tells him that he heard this is an elf island, so he wants to know what elves are, since his data lacks detailed information about them, which means they must have appeared while he was asleep. Leon explains that many elves serve as slaves or servants, but most of all, they're considered useful since they can't produce children with humans. Luxian mentions that they seem to be long-lived and skilled in magic, and they're also an entirely different species from new humans. After a while, they finally arrive at the elven village, and Marie immediately falls in love with their looks. Many elves surround them with curiosity, wondering if they're tourists from the kingdom, since it's rare to see outsiders. Marie shamelessly exclaims that they're all so beautiful, which makes Leon wonder what she's thinking. Jilk informs her that elves apparently ignore physical appearance in favor of judging people by their mana, but either way, he thinks they're all stunning, as he is. Kyle doesn't say a word and simply walks away, so Leon stops him to ask him what's gotten into him. Kyle dismisses his concern and asks him to stop trying to be nice to him to satisfy himself, since he already told him he hates people like him who get the wrong idea. Leon quickly clarifies that he hates brats like him too, so he hopes he feels awkward about introducing Marie to his family. Kyle tells him that he doesn't get it at all, and explains that for elves, becoming a slave is no different from moving away from work. Besides, they're treated well too, compared to the boys at the academy. Leon silences him before he can finish his sentence, but just then, an elven woman approaches Kyle, hiding behind a tree. All the elves around notice her immediately, and when they realize Kyle is there as well, they instantly walk away from them. Kyle then introduces the woman to Marie, saying that she is his mother, Maria. Leon is shocked to know that she's his mother, and he doesn't hesitate to check her assets first. Marie nervously introduces herself, while Leon continues drooling over Kyle's mother, realizing she isn't what he expected at all. Kyle informs his mother that they're heading to the ruins and simply walks away, saying that he'll see her later. Maria doesn't even get the chance to say a word, so Marie once again wonders what's wrong with him, since he's acting weird today. With a sad expression, Maria explains that it's her fault for being mixed, since she's hideous to everyone. Leon doesn't know what she means by that, but he focuses on their mission and decides to speak to the leader of the elves to know if they can explore the ruins. The man explains that it's a sacred place, so outsiders aren't allowed to enter, and he doubts the village chief will allow it either. She's the old woman who leads the villages, and her fortune-telling used to attract a lot of visitors, but these days, her power has waned, and she's lost her accuracy. When Leon informs Marie about this, she only complains, and asks him how they'll get her treasure, so he tries to make her calm down, and lets her know that he's already working on a plan. His attitude only irritates her though, so she reminds him that he's her guard captain, and he should act like it. Leon gets a little frustrated and silently wonders what to do, because he's certain there is a lost item on this island, but he doesn't know the specifics since he didn't use it. Just then, all the elves gather in the middle of the village to hear what the chief has to say, since it's been a while since she last said something. The chief's servant speaks on her behalf, asking everyone to hear her words, and saying that no one must go to the ruins, so that they don't trigger the fury of the ancient demon lord. Leon asks Luxian if he believes in that stuff, and to his surprise, Luxian tells him that he does, because people who possess mysterious powers exist, and he's one of them, with his memories of his previous life. Leon admits that he's right, but he asks him if he knows what the demon lord is, since it doesn't appear in the game, and he's curious about it. Luxian has no information about it either, but before they can think about it any further, Marie suddenly steps forward and bluntly asks the chief to grant her permission to enter the ruins, because she has to acquire the treasure. The chief harshly glares at her and then whispers something to her servant, who asks her if she's the saint. Marie proudly confirms it and tells them that they've earned her praise for noticing, so they should hurry and let her enter the ruins. To her surprise, the chief's servant tells her that she can, because the saint will bring the ancient demon lord, so says the chief. This confuses her a little, so Marie hesitantly tells her that she doesn't know any demon lords. The chief's servant informs her that the time has come for the ancient ancient demon lord to judge them and their arrogance, so they should serenely wait for that moment. When the elves around hear about this, they quickly doubt the chief's words and assume that she's wrong again, saying that she used to be better, and that all of this is just nonsense. Marie doesn't know what she's talking about, but the treasure is all she cares about, so this is a win for her. Leon sees her laughing wickedly and sighs, saying that she's the real demon lord for sure. The exploration team wastes no time and enters the ruins to search for the treasure, but after a while, they find nothing at all. Marie doesn't understand why they haven't found anything, but Olivia is simply excited by everything, thinking that ancient ruins are really magical. Leon doesn't know why she's so excited over nothing, and Angelica is just disappointed, since there's no treasure and no adventuring to be done. Leon is sure they'll find something if they keep looking though, but everyone is already giving up, thinking that this is all there is to see. He asks Gertrude if she was hoping they'd find something, but she clarifies that she's just disappointed she'll have nothing to report. Marie just bursts into tears, saying that there isn't even a single gold coin, and that this can't be happening. Jilk and Greg try to reassure her, telling her that they can go adventuring with Prince Julius and the others again. Marie rejects the idea and exclaims that she's sick of living in debt, so she's not giving up on this now. After saying that, she runs deeper into the ruins without waiting for anyone, so Leon quickly tells everyone that he'll go after her, using his authority as captain. He's only doing this because this is the perfect opportunity to be with Marie alone and finally have a conversation with her while no one's listening. Soon enough, he finds Marie desperately searching for a treasure, so he puts his rifle to her head and confronts her, asking her if she's from another world. Leon clarifies that he knows that's how she made Julius and the others fall in love with her, and she even became the saint. Marie doesn't deny it, and simply asks him what he'll do if that's true, since he's also from another world. Leon is surprised that she noticed, so Marie explains that he's always getting in her way, and she can only assume he knows about the game. With this, Leon confirms that she knows this world is the one from that Otome game. Marie affirms this without a doubt and tells him that's why she took everything, but she doesn't see anything wrong with that, so she'll do whatever it takes to seize happiness in this world. As soon as she says that, the floor beneath their feet suddenly crumbles apart, making them both fall. Marie loses consciousness for a moment and gets a memory from her past life when she asked her older brother to carry her because her legs hurt. Her brother simply refused to help her, saying that she was heavy and that she was probably faking it again. He told her that even though she may be able to fool everyone else, she couldn't fool him. After that, he simply walked away, so Marie told him he was the worst brother ever. Marie wakes up after remembering that moment from her past life, but she doesn't know what happened to her after that. The others grow impatient when neither of them show up after a while, so Jilk says that they should go get them, since they're taking too long. Angelica asks him what they'll do if they get lost, and tells him that they just have to let Leon handle it and everything will be fine. Jilk and Greg completely lose their composure and clarify that's what makes them anxious, because they're worried Leon might get some weird ideas. Angelica also loses her patience and asks them not to be absurd, reminding them that Leon isn't like them. Despite this, they both clarify that he's a man, just like them, so he could be tempted by Marie's cuteness. Angelica silences them and doesn't hesitate to insult them, so Olivia quickly asks her to calm down, saying that she shouldn't state the truth. Gertrude tells her that she's not helping her case at all, but she refrains from interfering at all, not wanting to get involved. When Marie opens her eyes, she sees Leon shooting several monsters in the ruins, while Luxian informs him that there are unidentified organisms on the ceiling. Leon doesn't miss a single shot and soon gets rid of all the monsters in the area, but Luxian warns him that they don't seem to be ordinary monsters because they don't disappear when killed. Marie still doesn't know what's going on, so Luxian informs her that they've fallen beneath the ruins, and Leon is defeating some unidentified organisms. One of the monsters falls from the ceiling after being defeated, so Marie is instantly horrified and tries to run away. However, she falls as soon as she takes a step, unable to move because of the pain on her leg. She can't even stand back up, but Leon keeps his focus on the monsters and simply assumes she's faking it again, saying that she may be able to fool everyone else but she can't fool him. Marie gets frustrated and speaks without thinking, almost saying that he's the worst brother ever. Before she can finish her sentence, Luxian reminds her that she's the saint, so she can heal herself with magic. Marie had actually forgotten about that for a moment, so she quickly uses her magic to heal her leg and continues running, following Leon through the ruins. She's having a hard time keeping up though, so Leon complains about how slow she is. Marie gets irritated and clarifies that it still hurts for a while even after being healed, so running is difficult. Leon lets her know that Olivia can remove pain too, so this is the problem with imposters. Marie tells him that obsessing over her won't help him because he's only an NPC and she will never give him the time of day. Leon ignores her comment and asks her why she built a reverse harem, but Marie exclaims that anyone would claim happiness that's there for the taking, so he should let her live how she wants in her second life. Leon reminds her that she tried getting in Olivia's way and luring Angelica into a trap, and Marie can't argue against that. However, Luxian interrupts them both to tell Leon that the same can be said about him. After all, he acquired him instead of Olivia and felt great about thrashing Julius and his friends. Leon gets irritated and asks him whose side he's on, but Marie simply smiles and tells him that he's in no position to criticize her. He clarifies that he was just cleaning up her mess and asks her what she was going to do if they went to war with the principality and the final boss appeared. Marie assures him that she would have figured something out using the saint's power, but Leon reminds her that it's game over if she only has the saint's power, because she needs Olivia's power too. Before they can continue arguing, two elves suddenly show up and welcome them to the land of origin, ordering them to keep their hands in the air. Leon and Marie are taken to an underground laboratory, and one of the elves tells them that they'll make perfect test subjects for dissection. Leon assumes that they're the ones who made the monsters, so the elf admits that he's astute for a human. He then informs him that in these ruins, they entered the divine domain of creating life. He explains that long ago, the world was controlled not by the barbaric humans, but by the elves, and these ruins prove that. Their ancestors created many organisms here, and the lesser kind, the humans, were among them. That's why they will reclaim the world the humans took from them, and the elves will subjugate all species and restore the world to its rightful form. Lakshan suddenly interrupts him to tell him that he's wrong about everything, because they've interpreted everything to suit themselves. After all, it was actually humans who managed this facility, and it was the elves who were created. The elf is shocked by this revelation, but Marie doesn't pay much attention to this and discreetly asks Leon who this familiar of his is. Leon tells her that he's Lakshan, an overpowered item she should know if she played the game. Marie clarifies that she doesn't know that item and tells him that cheating isn't fair, so he should just give it to her. Leon ignores her request, realizing she's really a piece of work, but the elves are still having a hard time believing what Lakshan said. Still in denial, the elf tells him that he's just a piece of junk with a poor sense of humor. However, Lakshan clarifies that he acquired the information from this facility's artificial intelligence. The system there suddenly activates and lets them know that he's correct, mentioning that the elves on this island are feral versions of the ones created here. The elf is still in denial because he firmly believes that elves are greater than all others, since they're long-lived and skilled in the use of magic. The artificial intelligence explains that they're long-lived so they can fight longer, and they're skilled with magic because they were designed that way. She mentions that they're inferior to the elves they initially created, though, but the leader of the elves suddenly shows up to clarify that they're the supreme species. Lakshan then understands that the village leader is connected to this facility too, which doesn't surprise him. The leader asks the two elves not to listen to their lies and explains that it's just a piece of junk, changing its voice to speak nonsense. Both elves easily believe him, but the leader clarifies that word can't get out about this, so they have to dispose of them in a convenient accident so their friends don't find out. Just then, they free several of their creations to get rid of them, and both Marie and Leon are soon surrounded by monsters. The artificial intelligence detects an emergency, so she deploys countermeasures and opens fire to take down the monsters in a matter of seconds. The leader of the elves is shocked by this, so Leon takes the opportunity to punch him in the face. The other two elves immediately attack him, but Lakshan lets them know that they won't be able to inflict a single scratch on him with just that. The artificial intelligence then warns them that if they insist on attacking an old human, she will eliminate them. Having no other choice, the elves drop their weapons, so Leon quickly gets cocky and decides to mock them all he can. Marie isn't surprised by his hideous attitude, so she just sighs and admits that he reminds her of her brother. Once the elves are restrained, the artificial intelligence learns about the current situation in the world and says that this facility should self-destruct. This place was made to fight new humans after all, so if it can't fulfill that function, it's more dangerous to keep it around. She entrusts Lakshan with her data, and he gladly accepts it, saying that he'll be more capable than ever. Marie doesn't care about the data though, because she's here for a treasure and nothing else. To her surprise, the AI tells her that there are items that may be of some value to her, so she can take them with her. When Marie sees the hidden box, she instantly cheers and orders Leon to carry it, saying that he should be glad he gets to carry a treasure. Leon silently complains and realizes she reminds him of his sister from his past life. Once they exit the facility and open the treasure box, they only see an old gauntlet, and Leon knows it's the lost item, though he doesn't remember its name. For some reason, Lakshan gets furious and starts short-circuiting, shouting that he'll destroy this object, grind it into dust, and utterly annihilate it until not even a speck remains. He starts jumping around in a fit of rage, so Olivia tries to make him calm down, saying that he should take deep breaths. Lakshan calmly informs her that he doesn't need to breathe, and then continues screaming, completely out of control. The moment they hear an explosion in the distance, Leon knows that the facility already self-destructed. Despite this, Lakshan's main unit suddenly shows up and opens fire, creating an even bigger explosion and terrorizing the elves, who believe it's the Demon Lord's wrath. Once the facility is nothing but ashes, Lakshan finally calms down and explains that this is what happens when someone angers him. Leon simply asks him if he's sure he isn't the Demon Lord they were talking about. Gertrude tells him that she's glad he found his treasure and then simply walks away, which makes Leon suspicious of her. Now all the elves on the island fear them and ask them to spare them, thinking that they're with the Demon Lord. The chief servant says that it's a shame the ruins were destroyed, but she thanks them anyway for capturing those who violated the taboo. She then informs them that, as thanks, the chief will tell their fortunes regarding their futures. She explains that the chief is relieved the Demon Lord's wrath was appeased by merely destroying the ruins, and that there's not much she can do for them, but she'd like to tell them their fortunes as a token of gratitude. Angelica seems to like the idea, but Marie doesn't even try to hide the fact that she hates it, simply simply because she'd rather have a treasure. However, when the village chief's servant says that she'll begin with the saint, Marie is eager to hear it and asks her to give her the best outcome possible. The village chief's servant informs her that there are strange forces at work and she's already met her soulmate, but it was a missed connection. Marie is shocked to know there was someone other than Julius and his friends, and the chief's servant clarifies that she doesn't know the specifics, but they've already said goodbye and can never be together again. That only makes Marie feel worse, so she complains and exclaims that she wishes she hadn't told her. The chief's servant continues and informs her that she can't escape the burden she's taken on, so a brutal life awaits her, where the only paths open to her are gaining everything or losing it all. Marie immediately demands that it be redone, because that sounds terrifying, but the chief's servant ignores her and moves on, talking to Gertrude next. She tells her that she will encounter a turning point in her life that comes with great difficulty. However, when faced with that challenge, she will also meet her soulmate, and if they can find a way to walk together, her difficult path will be bathed in light and they will be a reliable source of support. Gertrude is a little surprised by this, but she keeps her composure and simply says that she'll keep that in mind. The chief's servant then talks to both Angelica and Olivia, letting them know that their fates are intertwined and have veered sharply from how they should have been. She mentions that someone else carries the burdens they were meant to bear, and that they also have the blessing of a hero powerful enough to command the ancient demon lord. As soon as they hear that, both Angelica and Olivia look at Leon, thinking that he might be that hero. Leon immediately denies it and explains that if there's a hero around, then he wishes they'd show up, but it's definitely not him. Gertrude tells him that of course it isn't him, and asks him not to be arrogant like that. Marie agrees, and asks him to know his place as NPC, but that only irritates him. Just then, the village chief starts coughing, so Leon tells her that she can rest now, since she must be tired. Surprisingly, the village chief smiles at him and speaks for the first time, telling him that he seems to be a kind man. Both Gertrude and Marie are shocked to know that's what she really thinks, but Leon gets irritated again and asks them if they have a problem with that. The village chief continues and once again thanks him for saving the village of Fan. She explains that her powers can't see his future, but she knows something for sure. Leon waits expectantly, only to realize she has fallen asleep before finishing her sentence. He easily loses his composure and shakes the old woman's body to try and wake her up, asking her to open her eyes and finish what she was about to say. Angelica and Olivia quickly stop him, saying that he should treat the elderly with care. Gertrude and Marie, on the other hand, are glad that things went wrong for him, since they think he deserves it. Leon continues sulking after that, still feeling unsatisfied, but Luxian tells him that he's embarrassing himself. Marie asks Joke and Greg where Kyle is, and they both inform her that he returned to the ship already, and that he didn't even say goodbye to his mother. Olivia decides to ask the village chief's servant what a mixed elf is, since that's what Eumaria called herself. The chief's servant explains that elves judge beauty by mana, and generally, each person's mana is a single color. However, elves are sometimes born with multicolored mana, and such mana is mighty and special, but from their perspective, it's also abhorrent. Additionally, Eumaria once left the village to be a traveling entertainer, and she was with a child when she returned, which means the father was most likely human. Angelica is surprised to hear this, because she thought elves could only have children with each other. The chief's servant confirms that, but she also explains that those with special mana seem to be an exception, which means Kyle is a half-elf. The existence of half-elves is quite inconvenient to elves who leave the island to work. After all, one of the reasons elves are considered useful slaves is because they can't have children with humans. Both Eumaria and Kyle have been treated poorly in the village, but Marie doesn't like that at all, and says that this is all the fault of that man who ditched Eumaria, because all she did was have a kid. The chief's servant clarifies that this is elf business, a private family matter, so it's not a problem they can solve. Despite this, Olivia knows that if Eumaria stays in this village, they will continue treating her poorly, and she will be on her own. With this in mind, Leon decides to take Eumaria with them, though Luxian later asks him if he's not getting too involved in someone else's family affairs. Leon doesn't deny it, but clarifies that he can't just ignore it, so he's glad the chief agreed to help. Luxian reminds him that if she wanted to, she could drastically reduce the value of elves as slaves. Leon thinks that's a good trump card to have, so he plans to make good use of it. Eumaria approaches him after a while and asks him what's going to happen to her now. Leon informs her that his parents are looking for a live-in servant and asks her if she'd like to work for them. Eumaria hesitates and tells him that everyone in the village calls her dumb and slow, but Leon asks her not to worry about that and assures her that she'll be paid too. However, Kyle suddenly barges in, furious, and asking him what the meaning of this is, and exclaiming that he had no right to take his mother from the village. Eumaria tries to explain that Leon was just worried about her, but Kyle yells at her and reminds her that's how she was fooled before. He harshly scolds her for being so soft, and tells her that this is why she's so miserable and poor. Olivia decides to intervene just then, unable to ignore the situation, and asks him how he dares to say something like that. Kyle also yells at her and tells her that this is none of her business, but Olivia tells him that it sure is, and asks him to apologize to his mother right away. Kyle can't help but tear up despite his anger, and tells her that she doesn't know anything, and that she doesn't know why he became a slave or how they treated him in the village. He storms out of there without another another word, and Olivia is left feeling kind of guilty. Yumeria tells her that Kyle is right and that it is her fault because her failures made him suffer. She explains that mixed elves like herself can't work like the others, but she still can do some things. Yumeria decides to show them one of her few strengths, using her mana to make beautiful flowers grow in a vase. Leon admits that's amazing, and Luxian can't believe that the villagers refuse to acknowledge such great power, so it makes him think elves are a foolish species. Yumeria clarifies that it isn't that impressive, and that she's limited in what she can do. She explains that she traveled because she wanted to see the outside world, and shortly after she left, she fell in love with a noble. However, when she became pregnant against the odds, he accused her of being unfaithful with another elf and kicked her out. She returned to the village and gave birth to Kyle, but people realized he was half-elf when he grew like a human. Luxian bluntly asks her if that's why she sent him off to live as a slave, though Leon scolds him for his phrasing. Yumeria explains that's what Kyle wanted, and despite her protests, he left without a word, leaving behind the money he made selling himself. His hostility toward her is only natural, but she still thinks he's a good boy, and he even sends her money. Olivia is sad after hearing all of this, but Leon reassures her and tells her that he'll figure something out. He later decides to talk to Kyle alone and explains that his family needs a new servant, so he'll make sure she can live comfortably. Kyle just thinks that he'll make a move on his mother, so he clarifies that he doesn't trust him or his family. Leon informs him that he doesn't often make it back home, and his father loves his mother, so he wouldn't make a move on a servant probably. Kyle glares at him for his hesitation, so Leon quickly assures him that his father definitely wouldn't. Since Kyle still doesn't trust him, Leon tells him that he can come see her whenever he wants. He clarifies that Marie is not welcome, but he'll tell his father to let him onto his land because he's Yumeria's only son, after all. Kyle's expression turns sad just then, and he explains that his mother is too kind, which makes her incapable of hating anyone. She's a terrible parent as well, but he knows she's the only mother he's got. Because of this, with tears in his eyes, Kyle bows down to Leon and asks him to look after his mother. Leon accepts without a doubt, but decides to ask him a question, wanting to know why he doesn't abandon Marie. Kyle explains that finding a new master is hard, and she's a saint now. Besides, she's more put together than she seems. Leon understands that he adores her in a way, so he's looking closely like a helper character would. Kyle decides to mention one more thing, and warns him to watch out for the principality's princess, because she's plotting something for sure. Leon tells him that he had the same thought and asks him what brought him to that conclusion. In response, Kyle explains that he's seen plenty of people talk about him and his mother behind their backs, and their eyes always look the same when they're plotting something. Proving his point, the princess decides to act when no one is watching, infiltrating the ship's cargo bay. In no time, Gertrude manages to find the lost item they retrieved from the village, planning to use it for the kingdom. However, as soon as she opens the treasure box, an eye appears on the gauntlet and the ship's alarm goes off. Luxian informs Leon that he detected an irregularity in the cargo bay, and just as he thought, they shouldn't have brought that thing aboard. When they get to the cargo bay, Gertrude manages to escape without being seen, and all they see is the gauntlet acting up, with several tentacles coming out of it. Leon is clearly disgusted by the sight, but Luxian warns him to be careful, since it's alive. Just then, one of the tentacles attacks him, so Leon hides behind some boxes, wondering what to do. Luxian simply asks him to hold on to something, and then decides to eject cargo, opening the ship's hatches. Leon holds on to one of the boxes for dear life as everything in the cargo bay is ejected and thrown out of the ship. As soon as the gauntlet is far enough, Luxian fires the primary cannon and reduces it to ashes in 1 second. Once everything returns to normal, Leon asks him if he really had to do all of that. Luxian explains that that weapon should not exist, though he admits this must be what it means to feel refreshed, since he wanted to do that from the moment he saw that thing. Olivia and Angelica soon show up to see what's going on, so Leon reassures them and clarifies they already solved the problem. Luxian mentions that someone must have woken it up, so they should check the security footage to see who was messing with the gauntlet. Thanks to this, Leon soon finds out that this is what the princess is after. When they return though, Marquis Frampton isn't happy at all, because they received word that Leon acquired a valuable item, but he destroyed it without consulting them. Leon is aware that he knows everything, so he explains that he had no choice, because his ship could have fallen if he had tried to bring it back, and he doesn't know if the palace would have reimbursed him. He confidently reminds them that the situation is described in his report, so if they've got a problem, then they should write their own. Leon leaves them without another word, but Luxian later asks him if he should have taken that attitude, so he tells him that they should be grateful he came to make his report, since he's got an important tea party tomorrow. Queen Mylene laughs just then, saying that he hasn't changed at all, and asking him to speak with her for a moment. Leon is really happy to see her, so he accepts without a doubt, and Mylene tells him that he did a good job on the expedition. She admits that she panicked when he took Princess Gertrude with him though, so Leon clarifies that she simply tagged along, claiming it was the palace's orders. Officially, she was inspecting the frontier, but only officially. Mylene mentions that the faction war within the palace has intensified these days, so there are people with all manner of opinions. Leon assumes that includes people who don't like him, ones who might try to steal a lost item from him. Mylene confirms this and explains that many envy his power, but she assures him that she'll do everything she can to assist him, so he just has to tell her what he needs. Leon is completely delighted by her, so gets down on one knee and asks her to stay with him in that case, because she's everything he wants. wants. Mylene gets flustered by this, clearly taken by surprise, so she nervously tells him that she can't do that because she's old enough to be his mother and she even has a child his age. Leon insists and tells her that it doesn't matter because she's really beautiful and she's the most attractive person in the kingdom. Before he can finish his sentence, Julius suddenly hits him on the head from behind, saying that he's really bold for seducing the queen in the palace. Mylene quickly tells him that he's mistaken, but before she can clarify what they're doing, Leon speaks first and explains that they were reaffirming their love. Julius launches him across the room without a doubt and then scolds his mother as well, saying that he came to the palace regarding Marie's debt. Mylene clarifies that it's not like that and explains that she just had something to tell Leon about the principality. With a serious expression, she warns him that the principality will bare its fangs against the kingdom again, so he can't let his guard down. In a change of scene, we see Meowler talking to his accomplices, informing them that Kyle said he wouldn't help. They simply assume that he has to be careful, since he's the saint's servant, but they're still surprised Meowler was able to acquire a key to Leon's room. Meowler explains that his sister had a spare key, so it was really easy to borrow it without her realizing. Now all he has to do is put the box they gave him in his room, and he'll immediately get paid and see what happens. Later, Frampton is informed that preparations have been made, so he says that Leon will be dealt with appropriately for being a fool who wasted a lost item. Unaware of all of this, Leon decides to see his friends to offer them free ships, explaining that he acquired them when he fought the principality. He clarifies that he'll give them the ships for free, but they have to pay for their own repairs and maintenance. He's thinking about building an airship factory back home, but it's hard to find clients initially, so he wants them to be his clients and give him feedback. Leon assures them that he'll charge a fair price for maintenance and repairs, which is a small price to pay, considering the ships are free. That seems convincing enough, but he also announces that he'll even throw in some armor on a first-come, first-served basis. Soon, many students gather around him, interested in his offer, so Leon is glad that they have no idea that nothing's more expensive than something that's free. The next day, he enjoys his tea party with Clarice and Deirdre, who mention that he's too laid back and ask him if he understands the position he's in. Clarice reminds him that the Redgraves faction has weakened at the palace, and her father has lost influence, even though he's a minister. Deirdre also informs him that Marquis Malcolm Frampton, who is on the rise, insists he be dealt with harshly. Leon doesn't give it much importance and simply mentions that they apparently know about everything that goes on at the palace, as expected. Clarice is still concerned about him, so she asks him to be careful because Marcus Frampton has the power to force his way. Deirdre reminds him that the principality resents him as well, so he shouldn't be so relaxed. As soon as she says that, several guards barge into the room and point their weapons at Leon. Deirdre quickly intervenes and reminds them that he's an official viscount, but one of the guards tells her that a rebel's title doesn't matter. He explains that evidence of treason was found in Leon's room, which suggests that he was plotting to rebel against the kingdom. Deirdre protests and tells him that can't be, because Leon is a hero who protected many students. The guard simply tells her that she can voice her objections in court and proceeds to arrest him, so Leon realizes that they got him. Having no other choice, Leon follows the guards with handcuffed hands, and soon everyone outside finds out that he's been arrested. All students start doubting him right away, and some of them say that they heard he had ties with the principality since they found evidence in his room. Despite all the things he did for the kingdom, now everyone thinks him driving off the principality was just a setup, and they resent him for being a traitor. Soon, Leon realizes they never trusted him in the first place, which doesn't surprise him, but he admits that he can't believe they'd do this just to bring him down. As soon as he speaks, one of the guards reacts violently and punches him in the face, calling him a rebel and demanding that he be quiet. Leon can't do anything about that in this situation, but he looks at the guard and promises that he'll remember his face. All students soon make their hatred clear by telling him that he's a disgrace to the academy, calling him a rebel and a criminal, and asking him to disappear already. Despite how harsh they are, Leon still thinks this suits him better than being treated like a hero, but he can't hide his surprise when he sees Olivia's worried expression in the crowd. He just waves at her with a smile, silently trying to reassure her and downplay the situation, but both Deirdre and Clarice are also really concerned about him, as well as his friends. In no time, the royal army seizes his ship and the lost item armor as well, and Leon is taken to the dungeon while Luxian follows him, remaining invisible. Two guards of higher rank inform the guards that Leon has been assigned a solitary cell on the lowest floor, so they're going to take him there. Once the lesser guards leave, the other two take Leon downstairs, asking him to hurry. Leon simply complains and clarifies that he's going as fast as he can, but just then, one of the guards takes off their helmet, and he's surprised to see that it's actually Queen Mylene. She asks him to keep his voice down, but Leon can't hide how happy he is to see her, since he didn't expect to run into her here, and he thinks this makes getting arrested worth it. The other guard takes his helmet off as well, saying that he's rather composed considering the circumstances. When Leon sees him, he recognizes him as Angelica's older brother, Gilbert, who tells him that he actually has a request for him. Mylene tells him that, just like she said before, there is an intense factional conflict going on in the palace. Gilbert explains that since Julius's downfall, the Redgraves faction has shrunk, and in some ways, Leon is the cause. Mylene informs him that Marcus Marquis Frampton's faction, in particular, has gained power, and they're trying to completely eliminate the Redgrave's influence. The Marquis is conspiring with the Principality to seize power, so in other words, they plotted to have Leon arrested. Marquis Frampton saw him as a threat because he has lost items, and it seems plausible that he'd work with the Principality that already resents him. Regarding the Principality, the kingdom is demanding reparations for their attempted invasion, but they have not responded yet, so perhaps the Marquis told them not to. After giving Leon all this information, Mylene and Gilbert tell him that they need him to go into the dungeon and uncover someone with ties to the Principality. Gilbert warns him that they'll probably attempt to contact him while he's imprisoned, so he'll technically be the bait to identify who their enemies and allies are. Mylene apologizes to him, saying that this won't be easy, but Leon just asks them if Angelica and the others know about his situation. Gilbert denies it and explains that they can't tell them because this is a top-secret matter. Because of this, Angelica acts without thinking and soon decides to confront Gertrude, accusing her of setting Leon up. After all, she heard the princess has Marquis Frampton's backing, so she probably ingratiated herself to the Marquis to bring Leon down. Gertrude easily gets on her nerves, asking her not to accuse her without evidence just because their family's factions are opposed. Angelica suppresses her anger and asks her why she hates Leon so much, but just then she realizes Gertrude is planning to start another war. Since she doesn't deny it, she asks her if she really hates the kingdom that much. Gertrude reminds her that 20 years ago, the kingdom invaded the innocent Principality for no other purpose than to expand its territory and take its wealth and resources, as if to say they were driven by their adventurer's instinct. To make things worse, they killed not only soldiers, but women and children as well. The valiant Principality soldiers drove them off, but many were slain, so Gertrude tells Angelica that she can't understand the pain of those who lost children, parents, and families, and she can't expect to be forgiven now. Despite this, Angelica tries to warn her that the Marquis is just using her hatred for the kingdom. Before she can reason with her, Gertrude's knights interrupt her, warning her to watch her tone when speaking to the princess. They then inform Gertrude that the Marquis has summoned her, so she leaves the room, not letting Angelica say another word. Once she meets with the Marquis, he shows her a lost item, identical to the one Leon destroyed. Frampton explains that he found it while reviewing the inventory in the expedition report, and it's listed as the arm of an ancient armor, so he believes it's a lost item. Gertrude admits that it's identical to the one they found on the Elf Island, so he tells her that it seems to be a pair with that lost item, and he'd like the people of the Principality to use it. Despite this, Gertrude clarifies that she'd rather he return the flute and Vandel's sword that were taken from them. Frampton explains that the royals are keeping a close eye on those items, and greasing palms is risky business. He assures her that this arm will help her carry out their plan to cede some territory to the Principality, and while she'll receive land, he'll receive status for achieving peace, so they both win. Gertrude seems to like that idea in part, but she asks him what he'll do about Leon. Frampton then informs her that his airship and black armor lost item have been seized, and the Viscount himself has been imprisoned, so the threat to the Principality is gone. He clarifies it is all thanks to her help, though he admits that the downfall of the Redgraves helped a lot too. Gertrude tells him that she'll let him handle coordinating with the Principality, so he cannot fail. Once that's settled and the Marquis leaves, she knows there's no turning back now, and admits that she deserves the hate of her younger sister, Gertrude. Soon after that, Garrett informs Vandal that the princess successfully curried favor with the kingdom, so he hopes he's ready for what's coming. Vandal tells him that he's already died once as a knight, so he'll give the rest of his life to the princess. Garrett then tells him that the villainous knight has been arrested and his airship and armor were seized. That only disappoints Vandal a little, because he had hoped to settle things with that boy on the battlefield. Garrett scolds him and tells him to let go of his ridiculous warrior's pride already, because the Principality must win. He then asks him to prepare the lost item, and says that he'll summon the other princess, Gertrude's younger sister, Gertrude. In the meantime, Leon sulks in his cell, having nothing better to do, until one of the guards informs him that he's got a visit. He's surprised to see that it's Gertrude, who asks the guard to leave them alone to talk to him. Leon cheerfully greets her and asks her what the princess of the Principality is doing here, but Gertrude gets to the point and asks him if he knows another war will break out. He easily confirms it, so she directly asks him to kneel before her and become her knight, saying that she'll save him if he serves the Principality. Leon doesn't answer immediately, so she asks him if he wants to die pointlessly in the kingdom's power struggle when all he actually wants is a peaceful life. Leon asks her what makes her say that, and Gertrude tells him it's the fact that he didn't kill anyone back then. Plus, despite possessing powerful lost items, he doesn't show off his power or assist the royal army. Leon can't help but smile at that, saying that it sounds like she understands him better than the kingdom. Gertrude tells him that if he serves her, she guarantees he'll eventually have a quiet and relaxed life. Despite this, Leon doesn't even think about it and declines her offer, so she asks him if the kingdom is that precious to him. To her surprise, Leon denies it and clarifies that he doesn't owe the kingdom anything, since it even threw him in this dungeon. If anything, he actually resents it, but he still has his reasons to decline her offer, though he won't elaborate about that. Gertrude soon understands that there is no point in continuing this conversation, so she warns him that it'll be too late if he changes his mind later. After all, this time, she'll stain the Holfert kingdom with blood and send send this land crashing down. Once she leaves, Leon just says that she must really hate him. But to his surprise, Luxian tells him that it seemed to him that she has doubts. Sometime later, Angelica decides to speak to her father, asking him to release Leon because at this rate, there will be another war, and they can't win without his power. However, Vince asks her not to be so spoiled, and clarifies that even if he released him, he'd still be missing his airship and armor. Angelica assumes that he's saying Leon is worthless without his lost items, so she reminds him that he has done a lot for her. Even so, Vince tells her that Leon has already been rewarded for that, and he even got promoted. He explains that he's looked out for Leon until now because he had power, but now that he's lost it, there is nothing the Redgraves can do for him. Before finishing the conversation, he warns her that she must never forget that if she's not careful, she'll never set foot on these grounds again. Unable to do anything, Angelica decides to see Olivia to inform her that Leon is still in the dungeon, which means the situation is more serious than they thought. She mentions that there are people within the palace linked to the principality, and they threw Leon into the dungeon and are trying to start a war. Angelica confesses that she asked her family to intervene, but they wouldn't, and she thinks she could have protected Leon if she were stronger, but there's nothing she can do now. Olivia asks her what's going to happen to Leon now, and Angelica explains that unless the accusations of treason are disproven, he'll likely be executed. Leon has saved her so many times during the duel against Prince Julius and when she was taken hostage by the principality, but she still can't do anything for him. Angelica can't help but cry, feeling helpless in this situation, so Olivia quickly hugs her and tries to comfort her. However, just then, Angelica realizes there is one last group that could help them. Soon enough, they decide to see Marie, who simply feels cocky because they came to ask her for help. Angelica and Olivia ask her to please save Leon, while Marie silently enjoys the situation. She was overjoyed when she heard the NPC was arrested, but she never thought these two would bow their heads to her, so this makes it even better. She doesn't make it easy for them though, and tells them it is very audacious of them to ask her for help now, so she wonders if they've forgotten what happened to Julius. Angelica remembers the way she challenged her, so she apologizes and admits she was a fool. Marie then addresses Olivia and asks her if she doesn't think there is a proper way to ask for things. When she sees Olivia's confused expression, Marie decides to be clear and directly asks her to grovel before her. Angelica is shocked at first, but she quickly remembers her father's words, knowing that she has to be careful or she'll never set foot on these grounds again. Olivia tries to say that she can do that, but Marie clarifies that it has to be both of them. She knows that Angelica will never do it because the daughter of a duke would be worse than disowned for groveling. It's not like she knows how to save the NPC anyway, so she'll just find a way to refuse them. Much to her shock, in broad daylight, both Angelica and Olivia actually grovel before her in front of everyone. When they see the duke's daughter doing that, they realize the Redgraves truly have fallen, and she's bringing shame onto her family. Marie is still too shocked to speak, but her sidekicks are really enjoying the situation, saying that they really look pitiful and that they can't believe that the duke's daughter is groveling alongside a commoner. Even Kyle approaches Marie, feeling a little uncomfortable and asking her if she's sure about this, because even he's disgusted. Marie doesn't even know how to respond, and she's internally panicking because she didn't think Angelica would actually grovel, and this is not what she wanted. Angelica and Olivia once again ask her to save Leon's life, but before Marie can say anything, one of her sidekicks speaks first, saying that there is a proper way to ask for things. The other girl agrees and tells Angelica that the duke's daughter should know how to speak properly. Having no other choice, Angelica changes her phrasing and asks Marie to please save Leon's life, addressing her with respect. Before Marie can stop her, her sidekick asks Olivia to do the same thing, asking her not to get carried away just because she has some mysterious powers. After Olivia does it, the girls harshly stomp on their backs, telling Marie that they're the perfect footrest, so she should sit on the duke's daughter and rest her feet on the commoner. Marie can't believe what they're doing, and she even wonders what's wrong with these girls because they're just using her name to vent their frustrations. Unaware of how horrified Marie is, the girls simply continue and ask Angelica and Olivia if it pleases them to serve as the saint's chair. They press them even further and ask them to answer them, but just then, Julius and the others show up to save them, asking them to stop. Julius clarifies that both Angelica and Olivia have demonstrated their resolve and tells Marie that there is no need to continue. Brad agrees with him and says that after that, they should demonstrate their sincerity as well. Joke tells her that they should let the past go, and Chris warns her that going further would damage her reputation. Surprisingly, Greg agrees and tells her that they must save Leon, but even after all of that, Marie still doesn't know how to save him. It's not like she can just say that though, so she forces a smile onto her face and asks them to help her in that case. Julius and the others easily accept, asking her to count on them, though Marie has no idea how they'll do it. Olivia quickly helps Angelica stand back up, asking her why she did that even though she didn't have to. Angelica explains that she just thought it was the best choice, even if it meant tarnishing her family's name and bowing her head to the woman who took her fiancé. Her eyes easily fill with tears when she thinks about it, but Angelica tells her that she still wanted to save Leon, and Olivia realizes just then that she must really love him. As they speak, the Principality's forces are still on the move, and countless airships are moving towards the Kingdom of Holfort at high speed. Garrett soon confirms that there is no movement from the villainous knight, which means that Marquis Frampton still has both the warship and and his lost item armor. Everything appears to be going smoothly like he had hoped, so he smiles in victory and informs the second princess of the principality, Hertrauda, that they're ready for what's coming right now. As soon as she receives this information, Hertrauda stands up and decides to give her people an official order, asking them to rise up and to let them advance on the Holfort Kingdom to battle. Now that the lost items have been secured, the villainous knight has been arrested, and the magic flute and Princess Hertrauda have been secured, the principality's victory is certain. Without wasting any time, Hertrauda uses the magic flute to create several monsters in the sky, as soldiers from the principality go to the front lines to fight. Meanwhile, Leon is taking things easy inside his cell, enjoying not having to do anything at all. However, Luxian informs him that he's detecting slight communications jamming near the border. Just then, a guard informs Marquis Frampton and the others that the principality is invading, and over 100 ships and thousands of monsters are already attacking. The communications were cut off due to technical issues, so they don't know anything about their guards. Luxian tells Leon that it's the Principality of Phanos, letting him know that they're already here. Despite this, Frampton simply says that it doesn't matter, because they can't reach the royal capital right away, and he wants to see how much of a fight the provincial lords can put up. The damage will be limited, so they should remain calm and notify the queen in the meantime. Frampton also orders to place the capital on high alert, so the alarms soon go off, alerting all the citizens and encouraging them to stay indoors. Classes are also cancelled, and the students don't understand what's going on, so they don't know if they can really trust this information. Deirdre doesn't know what to believe herself, but Clarice mentions that her father asked her to go home right away, so something is definitely happening. Meanwhile, Luxian tells Leon that they caught more than expected, and all those shady nobles came crawling for his help. They wanted him to tell them how to operate the lost items, and some of them even asked him to join them so that he'd be pardoned, or tried to manipulate him with lies. That only helped Leon confirm that Mylene was right, though Luxian mentions that she should come soon, or he really will be executed, not that he'd ever let that happen. Luxian asks him why he isn't proactively doing anything, since he looks pretty calm right now. Leon explains that only a few nobles are unhappy, and everyone else is satisfied with how this world works, so if he starts carelessly fighting back, he'll be the bad guy, since he's still a knight. Luxian clarifies that the kingdom's knights are merely useful tools for noble ladies and the palace, and asks him if he still thinks chivalry is about protecting the people. Leon tells him that chivalry is just a facade anyway, so he doesn't care much about that. Just then, Jilk appears to tell him that he's pathetic, which surprises him a little, since he doesn't know how he got in here or what happened to the guards. Jilk explains that the guards weren't particularly concerned since they're already feuding, so it was no problem getting in here. Putting that aside, he mentions that Marie asked him to save him, but Leon instantly assumes that this is some kind of trap, and asks him how he's going to save him. Jilk proudly reminds him that his family are court nobles, which means he has some connections, so he just has to sit tight and not worry about a thing. Leon decides to take a nap as he waits, but in no time, Jilk returns crawling in defeat, completely beaten up. He explains that his family told him to reflect on his actions and refused to listen, and then collapses on the floor. Leon isn't surprised at all, and soon enough, Greg is the one who visits him, so he assumes that Marie also told him to save him. Greg doesn't deny it, but he clarifies that he already failed with that, because when he asked his family to get him out, he got into a fight with his father. Leon tells him that he should apologize to the old man, because he and his friends caused too much trouble for everyone. Even though he's right, Greg tells him that he's the last person he wants to hear that from, which kind of offends him. The next loser who shows up is Brad, or as Leon calls him, the narcissistic purple. Just like the others, he is here to save him, but he already looks defeated, because he can't get in touch with his family. He can't connect to their communicator, and nobody's at their manor in the capital, so he's completely alone. Brad straight up starts bawling his eyes out in front of Leon, who tries to make him calm down, and says that he's sure there's a reason for that. Leon soon stops himself when he realizes how ridiculous this situation is, and wonders why he's the one cheering him up while he's in a cell. Chris shows up next, and his appearance isn't what surprises Leon, but the fact that his face is completely swollen and purple, making it clear that he received a good beating. That much is more than enough to let him know that he failed, but Chris still explains himself and says that he demanded to know why a master swordsman and instructor like his father couldn't save him, and this is what he got for it. Leon now understands why he looks like that, so he tells him that he could have phrased that better. At this point, Leon is already fed up with them, so as soon as he sees Julius's face, he asks him to leave immediately, not wanting to hear a thing. After all, the mark on his face gives him away, and he already knows that he tried to save him and failed. Julius calmly confirms it, explaining that when he asked his mother, she simply slapped him. That actually surprises Leon, because he didn't think even Mylene slaps people. Julius then mentions that all he said was that it was a request from her future daughter-in-law Marie, so he doesn't understand what's wrong with that. Leon is completely unimpressed, and wonders if Julius is actually that dumb, though the question answers itself. Despite how pathetically defeated he looks, Julius's expression suddenly changes to that radiant, confident smile of his, and he swears that he'll save him someday. Once he's gone, Leon is left wondering what the point of all that was, since none of them helped at all. Meanwhile, war completely breaks out, and the monsters start approaching the kingdom. There are too many of them, so the kingdom's forces soon realize it is impossible to stop them. Frampton is soon informed that the principality's fleet has begun attacking the border. The local lords are fighting back, attack, but their enemies are numerous, so it's hard for them to keep up. Despite this, Frampton thinks it's not a problem, because they have secretly agreed to give the principality the lands they attacked. Once they capture the area, they'll put down their weapons, then it'll be the kingdom's turn to act. That's why he plans to let them do as they please, then his position will be rock solid. Frampton is also informed that they received word from the temple, and they apparently want the saint to join the fight. He thinks that's just a nuisance because he heard the saint can drive off monsters, and the temple must mean to strengthen their authority by demonstrating her power. Either way, it won't affect their deal with the principality, and putting the temple in their debt isn't a bad idea. Putting that aside, he mentions that it doesn't look like they'll be able to use Leon's lost items, so there's only one thing they can do with him. With this in mind, a noble under Frampton's command decides to pay Leon a visit, bringing him something to drink and saying that he thought he might be lonely. Of course, Leon doesn't trust him, so he simply says that he's avoiding alcohol for now, and asks him to have some himself instead. This doesn't amuse him one bit, so the noble asks him how long he intends to cling to life, since a knight should accept his death with grace. Leon continues mocking him, and says that he'd rather die of old age, which only infuriates the noble even more, making him think that his impudence knows no bounds. Already tired of trying, he decides to take the easy way out and suddenly pulls out a gun, asking Leon to die. Despite this, the shield around Leon easily stops the bullet, taking him by surprise. That's when Luxan shows himself, saying that he can't kill him, and asking him to look right. The moment he does, Chris suddenly shows up and easily disarms him after hitting him with a cane. To finish him off, Luxan knocks him out after hitting him on the head, asking him to be silent. Jilk then forces the lock open to get Leon out of the cell, saying that they tried everything they could, but all their attempts failed, so they had to resort to brute force. Just then, Leon notices that they knocked out the guards, and Jilk mentions that Greg and Brad are handling the guys upstairs. Having no other choice, Leon decides to go with them, though he asks them not to blame him for whatever happens. Julius greets him upstairs and tells him that he'll show him a secret passageway known only to royals. He looks pretty confident while saying that, but Leon gets mad at him and asks him not to tell him royal secrets so lightly. Greg tells him that's how he'll be saved, and Brad says that it's nonsensical to complain. Leon once again confirms that they're a bunch of fools, but he decides to follow them either way. As they walk through the forest, Luxan informs him that they've been unfortunately surrounded. However, that's when Julius's father, King Roland, suddenly shows up, ordering his forces to lower their weapons. Everyone, including Leon, immediately kneels before him, and Julius tries to explain the situation, but his father calls him a fool and clarifies that he already knows. They soon head to the palace to speak properly with the others, and Bernard informs Leon that the principality's forces are heading toward the capital. The enemy fleet has roughly 150 ships, and the number of armors is unknown, but they're bringing enough monsters to blot out the sky. Leon is a little confused by that last part because Princess Gertrude and the magic flute are supposed to be in the kingdom's possession. Vince tells him that he thinks the principality had another flute, but that seems sketchy to Leon, because that definitely wasn't in the game. Vince explains that they believe the second princess is using it, Gertrude's younger sister, Princess Gertruda. Leon also didn't know about that, and Vince mentions that they're currently defending against their advance, but so far, they've lost over 10 ships and nearly 100 armors. Mylene informs him that the temple has offered their assistance, and the saint will be sent to the front line. Just then, a guard barges in the room to let them know something urgent about their forces and the temples that went to engage the enemy. In a change of scene, we see the temple's forces approaching the front lines, aware that the enemy is approaching from the sea of clouds ahead. They tell Marie that the time has come for her to demonstrate her saintly powers, and their hopes are on her now. Marie is completely confident about this, so she arrogantly asks them to allow her to handle it. After all, if she succeeds here, nobody will be able to defy her anymore. Despite how convinced she is about all this, the giant cloud of monsters and enemy forces approaching them immediately wipes the smile off her face. She wasn't expecting them to be so many, and nobody told her it'd be this bad, so she's already starting to regret it. One of the monsters gets a little too close, so Marie panics and accidentally activates the power of the saint, protecting their own forces and eliminating several monsters at once. Seeing the saint's powers firsthand gives the temple's forces confidence, and they start to believe that they can actually win this. They all cheer for the saint now that they know they can drive the principality back, and for a moment, Marie believes that this is actually working, which means she didn't have to be Olivia after all. Her powers are powerful enough to keep the enemy at bay, and Gertruda soon confirms that the saint's power appears to be real. Garrett asks her to clear a path to the capital, but Gertruda already knows what she has to do. She silently says goodbye to her sister, saying that the role she failed to perform is the one she will perform in her stead. Just like that, she starts playing the magic flute, wanting the saint to taste the wrath of the principality of Phanos. Marie immediately freezes in fear when she sees a giant monster that looks like the final boss appear right in front of her eyes. Garrett confidently exclaims that the Sky Guardian looks mighty, and Gertruda is sure that the kingdom's continent will sink. However, she suddenly collapses after using the flute, and Garrett is aware that this is the true power of the life-draining magic flute, so this is no surprise. He knows the saint is powerless against the Sky Guardian, so they'll be free to trample the kingdom underfoot. foot. Despite her weakened state, Hertrauda is just glad that she'll be able to show her sister that she did it, and nothing else matters to her. Meanwhile, Marie backs away in fear, while the temple members tell her that they need shields and ask her to defeat that monstrosity. Having no other choice, Marie attacks through her panic and asks the monsters to stay away, using the saint's powers to try to defeat them. However, unlike the other monsters, the Sky Guardian remains intact and attacks their forces with an ultrasonic attack, shaking them despite their shields. Marie soon realizes she can't do this, and she definitely can't beat that thing, which wasn't even supposed to show up right now, not in the game she knows. The weight of being the saint falls on her shoulders, and it is now heavier than ever before, because everyone is waiting for her to do something about this, and they're desperately asking for her help. Unable to stand it a second longer, Marie completely loses it and finally snaps, asking them to stop and revealing that she's not the saint, but an imposter. Marie gives up, accepting through tears that she can't do anything at all because she's not the protagonist. As soon as she confesses the truth, the temple knows that it's time to retreat, but the Sky Guardian breaks through their forces, not giving them time to save themselves. While everything falls apart around her, Marie just cries and hopes that someone saves her, but she's completely alone. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the guard informs the king that the temple's forces have retreated and the kingdom's reinforcements were destroyed. Everyone knows that this is bad, because at this rate, they'll reach the capital in 2 days. With that in mind, Vince decides to be direct and asks Leon if he can beat them. Leon doesn't answer right away, knowing that the monster Marie couldn't beat is probably the game's final boss. If it is, then he can't beat it, and Luxian can't beat it either, because only the true protagonist, Olivia, can do it. However, things are already progressing differently from the game, so Olivia can't activate the power of love with her romance interests. To be completely honest, he thinks this game is over, and they're completely doomed. Vince notices that even he is at a loss for an answer, so he asks him to stand by until they know more about the situation. Leon then decides to ask something to the king, and mentions that Julius and the others who rescued him have been arrested. Roland explains that students who have never served would only get in the way, and they don't know what would have happened if he hadn't been here, since they're a bunch of fools. Leon can't argue against that, so he decides to have some time alone to think after the meeting. Luxian informs him that Marie is going to be executed by the temple, so he wonders if they'll burn her or crucify her for impersonating a saint. He also mentions that they're rather optimistic to have him wait under these circumstances. Surprisingly, Leon has nothing to say about that, and with a rather serious expression, he asks Luxian how many people have died in the principality's attack. Luxian tells him that if 30 temple ships and 200 royal ships have been destroyed, deaths would number in the tens of thousands. He then mentions that he was delayed by the jamming, but he scanned the entire kingdom and detected 2 giant monsters. They're approaching from the sky and sea to pincer the floating capital. Before Leon can even ask, something suddenly shakes the ground, and we see the huge monster approaching from the sea. Leon doesn't understand what's going on, because that's different from the game as well. Luxian tells him that it's the giants that are jamming communications, so he recommends fleeing this continent. Leon already knows this, since he has no attachment to the kingdom either, but there's something that makes him hesitate. Just then, Lucas decides to visit him to have some tea, knowing that he has something in his mind. He mentions that even Mylene was concerned about him, so he's clearly skilled at winning over the hearts of women, and he'll have to teach him sometime. Leon is surprised to hear his teacher say that, because it's unusual for him to joke like this. He hesitantly asks him if he's not going to run, and Lucas reminds him that he's a knight with a noble title granted by the kingdom. Despite this, Leon asks him if he'd run with him, taking him by surprise. Lucas tells him that he wouldn't blame him if he fled, but he's decided to stay, because to him, chivalry is about protecting those important to him. To that end, he'll keep fighting until the end, no matter how slim the odds. Lucas asks him what chivalry means to him, and Leon easily tells him with a smile on his face that chivalry is just a facade. However, he also admits that he happens to love that facade, and he loves the idea of knights protecting the people. With that in mind, he thanks Lucas for the tea and decides to leave without saying another word. Luxian asks him if he's not going to run, and Leon denies it, saying that he's going to fight the principality. Julius and the other fools came to save him despite knowing they'd be arrested, so he can't just leave them and run. He's aware it doesn't make sense right now, but if he runs, he knows he'll think about it later, and he won't live the rest of his life wondering if he made the right decision whenever he's lying in bed. Already determined, Leon asks Luxian to assist him, knowing that he can't count on anyone else now. Meanwhile, the royal capital is farther than Garrett thought, and the servants inform him that Princess Hertrauda is so exhausted she can't even stand on her own right now. That doesn't surprise him, since he can hardly believe she's still alive after summoning those guardians. The border forces soon show up to fight them, but Garrett simply orders the principality's forces to sweep them aside. As soon as the kingdom's forces realize what they're facing, they immediately decide to reverse course and retreat at full speed. One of the soldiers hesitates with this decision, but the captain reminds him how the palace has treated them until now, and clarifies that they're not obligated to fight. The people of the border city see their forces retreating, realizing that they're leaving them to their fate, with no one to defend them. In the meantime, Leon speaks to Queen Mylene to tell her about his decision, explaining that he doesn't feel good about letting the kingdom's people die, so he's not about to stand idly by when he knows so many will die. He also mentions that it's something every boy dreams of doing once, being a supreme commander. This takes Melaine by surprise, and she frankly tells him that he lacks credibility and experience for such a position, so her sanity will be questioned if she recommends him. Leon clarifies that if she doesn't like the idea, then he'll just run, and asks her if anyone else can fill the position. After all, as things stand, they can't even get close to their forces, so they'll be wiped out for sure. Leon explains that to turn this situation around, he needs the royal ship, though Mylene is shocked that he knows about that in the first place. He knows that ship was the driving force behind the kingdom's founding, as well as its trump card. Mylene nervously warns him that the royal ship isn't easy to use because it is a lost item. Despite this, Leon remains firm and insists, saying that he needs it and asking her to let him borrow it. Mylene begins to give in to his insistence, but she clarifies that the ship is inoperable, and neither her nor the king could make it work. Leon tells her that he'll use Prince Julius and Marie and asks her to gather the other four as well. Mylene reminds him that Marie is waiting for her execution, but Leon simply says that they just have to have them operate the royal ship before she dies. He knows they can't win without Olivia on that ship after all, so this is the only way. Mylene asks him if he can really beat them, and Leon confirms it without a doubt, but clarifies that he'll need the royal ship and to be appointed supreme commander for that. Mylene reminds him that Marquis Frampton will object to the idea, and his faction is the largest at court, so they have few allies. Leon assures her that this is what they have to do anyway, so Mylene understands that they have no other choice. She asks him to promise her that he'll return, and Leon accepts without a second thought. That puts Mylene at ease, and she confesses that she knows they did this to themselves, but she wishes other knights were as loyal as him. The moment those words leave her mouth, Mylene realizes she said something that she shouldn't have, but Leon doesn't let it slide and immediately questions her about it. Having no other choice, Mylene confesses that they place too great a burden on many men, especially the nobles in remote regions. After Mylene tells him everything, Leon decides to take action, knowing that he has few allies and can't expect much from them in battle. He goes to the boys' flower garden feeling confident because he's positive he has the power of friendship. Despite this, as soon as he explains the situation to his friends, both Daniel and Raymond immediately turn him down, saying that it's impossible. Raymond clarifies that they hid because they're scared of war, and Daniel mentions that tons of nobles and knights are fleeing too. Nobody's willing to fight for this kingdom after all, and the rest of students agree with them, since it's not like they can even fight anyway. Leon soon realizes that all the students here are just waiting for their families to pick them up, which really infuriates him, so he yells at them and asks them where their pride as nobles is. Raymond asks him not to bother, and reminds him that there is no reason for him to try so hard when he was arrested on false charges. Daniel agrees with him and simply tells him that if the kingdom loses, they'll just serve the principality. The rest of the students think that's not such a bad idea, since they even heard men have more power over there, and that's enough for them to have their allegiance. Leon quickly gets sick of them, so he decides to show them the contract they signed for the ships. He reminds them that they accepted his ships, and they know these ships can only be maintained at his family's factory. Knowing that they really need them, Leon asks them if they're really going to let go of their ships, since something like that will hurt their marriage prospects. He also mentions that he's going to fight the principality, so he doesn't think that they'll just let them surrender after they received combat-ready ships from him. If he loses, they'll assume that they're all on his side, and they hate the kingdom, so they could end up enslaved or slaughtered. This seems to get everyone worried, but Leon reassures them and asks them to trust him, saying that he will win. No one is really happy about this, because they really don't have a choice, and Leon never plays fair. They call him a villainous knight, but Leon takes that as a compliment and smiles wickedly, thinking that this is the power of friendship. Soon after that, Olivia and Angelica find out about the plan to make Leon a supreme commander, and it really takes them by surprise. After all, they've never heard of a student with such a position, but Luxian assures them it is what Leon is seeking anyway. Including partner, he can only secure 20 ships for combat, and while the kingdom's forces are unknown, the temple's forces are exhausted from their recent failure, so they can't count on them. Angelica asks him if the rural nobles won't help him, and Luxian explains that they have their lands full with the invasion. Many have surrendered already, as they have little loyalty to the palace. Olivia doesn't understand why this is, so Angelica explains that it's because the lords were made to obey the kingdom by military force. If she asks her father for help, she may as well be disowned after dishonoring her family. Despite this, Angelica says that she'll find something she can do to help Leon, because she completely trusts him. Olivia decides to remain silent, because she knows that Angelica is always looking forward, but she has no idea what she can do herself. On the other hand, sometime later, many people are waiting for the kingdom to let them board the evacuation ships, but Leon's father makes sure children go first. Leon soon decides to check on his father and siblings, since he was worried about them. They're all surprised to see that he's alright, and he tells his father that he has a request for him. It doesn't take long for Jenna to question him, wanting to know if he broke out of prison. Leon clarifies that they released him because he was framed, and he already has the evidence to prove it. The nobles who tried to win him over revealed all kinds of things while trying to make a deal after all. Balkus asks him to explain what's going on, since he could have been executed for that. Leon decides to tell him everything, and right after learning what happened, his father doesn't hesitate to hit Meowler. Jenna has no idea what's going on, so Balkus informs her that Meowler sold out his son, so he won't get away with it. Just then, Zola arrives with her children, demanding that he let them on his ship because they have to retrieve their riches from the capital. Balkis completely ignores her and looks down on Meowler, asking him if he's ready for what's coming. Meowler panics and tries to explain himself, but Balkis doesn't listen and raises his sword to cut off his head without a doubt, not even letting him say his last words. After this, he steps on Meowler's body and clarifies that he got what he deserved, because anyone who harms those dear to him will pay. Everyone is still in shock after witnessing such a thing, but Balkis doesn't waste any time and tells Rutart that this will be his first battle. After all, as Zola's eldest son, he's lived a life of comfort, but that ends today because he must defend his loved ones too. Rutart immediately refuses and asks him not to tell him what to do, calling him a savage backwater noble. Zola also gets defensive and asks him who he thinks he is ordering around, reminding him who has supported him until now. Balkis doesn't budge and asks her to hand him over because he's sending him into battle as the eldest son of the Bartforts. This makes Zola snap in anger, so she exclaims that Rutart is the son of the man she loved, so his blood doesn't flow in his veins. She soon realizes she messed up and quickly tries to deny it, saying that it was a lie. However, Balkis already suspected as much, so he clarifies that he's frankly relieved and tells her that this is goodbye because their marriage is dissolved and he wants her to leave now. Zola begins to panic and desperately tries to convince him to let them on his ship because she doesn't want to die. Of course, Balkis simply ignores her and walks away, putting an end to the discussion. Leon then asks Luxian where their enemies are, and he informs him that at their current speed, they'll reach the capital in roughly 30 hours. Soon enough, Minister Bernard approaches Leon and tells him that he appreciates what he did for his daughter Clarice. He also mentions that Mylene told him what happened, and as for the royal forces, turnout is low. They have only about 50 fully operational ships, though Leon clarifies that's more than he expected. He then informs Bernard that, including partner, he should be able to bring 24 ships. As they speak, the ground suddenly shakes, which means they're getting closer. Bernard asks him if he's certain he can win, and Leon affirms it, saying that he wouldn't attack them if he couldn't. He knows that's only if he can operate the royal ship and activate Olivia's power, though. Bernard admits that he is truly an impressive individual, and asks him if he'd marry Clarice once this battle is over. Leon assumes that he's joking and simply laughs, but Bernard's expression is completely serious, which kind of intimidates him, so he just tells him that they'll have to wait until after they win to consider it. Bernard then informs him that the people he asked for have arrived, and explains that the temple is in chaos, so they've been in the palace's custody. Without wasting any time, Leon decides to deal with them, and meets with Marie and the others, instantly noticing that there is no trace of their usual attitudes. Kyle explains that everyone turned on her once she confessed she's not a saint, so her followers abandoned her, and the temple is treating her terribly. Leon actually thinks that's kind of funny, though Kyle doesn't agree with him and asks him if she will be executed. Leon admits that impersonating a saint is a serious crime, so her official punishment will probably come later, but he doubts she'll be allowed to live even if they win the war. Julius immediately interrupts him and tries to reassure Marie, telling her that they're here for her. The others agree with him and try to make her feel better, but Marie finally reaches her limit and snaps, asking them all to shut up and saying that nothing is okay. Leon realizes that she is finally showing her true colors, and it doesn't surprise him in the slightest. Marie continues with her outburst and asks them to get out, exclaiming that she hates all of them. Carla tries to make her calm down, but Marie yells at her as well and asks her to get out and stay away from her too. Carla insists on staying because she's supposed to be her friend, but Marie reveals just then that she was obviously lying and explains that she only used her because she thought it would annoy that NPC. Knowing that they're not really friends really hurts Carla's feelings, but Marie doesn't take back her words, still really furious. Leon tells Marie that she's done a good job keeping the mask up until now, but that ends today. Chris still tries to defend her, saying that she's just tired, but Marie silences him and asks him to stay out of this, saying that all he knows is how to handle a sword. She then calls Greg a meathead and tells him that he's all talk, and she tells Brad that his narcissism disgusts her. Marie then calls Jilk a creep and tells him that she can never tell what he's thinking. And finally, she tells Julius that he's the biggest problem of all. After all, the only useful thing about him was his title, and he threw it away. Marie asks them if they really thought giving up their status, honor, and wealth would make her like them, because it simply makes no sense. She then tells Kyle that the same goes for him and calls him a noisy little brat, asking him to know his place. Marie clarifies that they should all be nicer to her, and that they should just do as she says, because she hates everyone who's useless and defies her. Everyone falls silent after her outburst, so Leon tells her that she's embarrassing herself. Marie also asks him to shut up and tells him that he's the reason she can't be happy. She breaks down in tears as she asks him to give it back, and both Angelica and Olivia arrive just then, glad to see that Leon really was released. Marie continues crying until she passes out, making them panic for a moment until they find out she is simply asleep, which means she must have been under a lot of stress. Leon then asks everyone to leave them, saying that he needs to talk to her. In the meantime, while Marie is asleep, she sees the continuation of the dream she had back at the elf village, the one where she's still a little girl in her past life. When she sees her little self crying alone in the street under the rain, Marie realizes she was too stubborn because she should have just gone home that day. However, her brother soon returns turns to scold her, telling her that she should have walked if she was going to cry about it. Despite his harsh words, he decides to carry her home without another word. Marie remembers just then that her brother did come to pick her up in the end, though she thinks he should have done that to begin with. Her brother continues walking as he carries her on her back, wondering why she always has to rely on him. Marie begins to tear up as she sees the memory unfold, realizing that her brother was foul-mouthed, but he was nice too. That's why she doesn't understand why he had to die. Marie was devastated when she found out, and she didn't even get to see him in the end because she had traveled abroad. Now she misses him more than anything, and she wants her brother to complain at her like he always does, and to save her like he always does. Marie calls for her brother in her sleep, letting out a few tears as Leon waits for her to wake up, thinking that she reminds him of her sister from his previous life, who was constantly jerking him around too. Luxian asks him if he's sure he should let her sleep, considering he needs to get her up and onto the royal ship. Leon asks him who he thinks he is, and Luxian tells him that he's someone indecisive and incompetent. Leon clarifies that that is no way to speak to his master. But just then, Marie finally wakes up and says that she's not doing anything until her brother gets here. As soon as Leon hears that she has a brother, he tells her that he must be just a worthless cretin. Marie immediately gets defensive and throws a cup at him, asking him not to make fun of her brother. Leon uses Luxian as a shield to protect himself, though Luxian doesn't like this so much and tells him that he won't forget this. Ignoring that threat, Leon tells Marie that he can't believe she's throwing a violent tantrum after that meltdown, and that he thinks even his sister is better than her. Marie asks him to shut up and tells him that she bets his sister is just some crazy fool. Leon gets defensive for once and tells her that even if she's crazy and selfish, she's still 100 times better than her. Marie then clarifies that her brother's foul-mouthed and terrible with a forgettable face, but he's 100 times better than him. Leon soon realizes that there's no point in fighting with her right now and asks her why she couldn't stay in her lane, wanting to know why she stole the protagonist's spot. Marie reminds him that she already told him she did it so she could be happy, but Leon calls her a fool and tells her that if she beat that game, then she should know they need Olivia's power to defeat the final boss. Despite this, Marie tells him that she didn't know anything about that because she had her brother beat the game for her, but he died. She just checked the save later once things had calmed down, and all she saw was the final cutscene. Leon is shocked to know that she managed to build a reverse harem with that little knowledge, since it's actually kind of impressive. He also can't believe that her brother was willing to beat that game for her, but Marie asks him to shut up and asks him what his story is. Leon tells her that his sister asked him to beat the game for her, so he played the whole thing while she was overseas. He suddenly trails off when he realizes how similar their stories sound now, and Marie notices the same thing. After just a few seconds, Marie figures it out and immediately jumps at him, realizing he is her older brother. Leon, on the other hand, is too shocked to react properly and simply knocks her out without a doubt, pushing her out of the way. Marie can't help but remember her old life just then, and it makes her think that life itself is a game, in some ways, because your choices can result in a really bad ending. She ignored her parents' messages because she didn't want to ruin the vacation vibes. As a result, she didn't know that her brother died, so she missed his funeral and completely lost her parents' trust. They kicked her out, and she dove into the world of nightlife, but every man she met there was a gold-digging scumbag or serial cheater. She had terrible luck with men, and once she got pregnant, he simply walked away. Having no other choice, she retired from nightlife once her daughter was born, and life became even harder. So ultimately, she had to turn to her parents for help. She lived away from her daughter on the condition that she visited several times a month, but she fell for another trashy man again. The man took the money she was saving for her daughter, not caring about how much she worked to earn it. He made her an empty promise, saying that he'd pay her back double, but Marie already knew it was a lie, so she tried to stop him and explain that it was for her daughter's birthday. She never stopped insisting, but unfortunately, the man lost his patience and kicked her with force, making her hit the back of her head with the counter. Marie immediately dropped on the floor, unable to move, but the man didn't even care and walked away, saying that she should listen next time. Although there wouldn't be a next time because that hit caused severe damage to her and she never got up again. Marie just stayed on the floor, thinking that she wanted to see her daughter at least one last time. As the light left her eyes, she cried and called her brother for help like she always did as a kid. Marie decides to tell Leon everything and mentions that she left her kid with their parents because they said they'd take care of their precious granddaughter. Despite this, she complains about the fact that she was on her own and says that they were really mean for that. Leon doesn't agree at all, but he's still processing everything because he can't believe that the person screwing up this world was his actual sister. Luxian closely observes his reaction and admits that he doesn't seem to be acting, which lends credibility to his claims about his previous life and the Otome game. Leon is surprised that he still didn't believe him at this point, but Marie ignores that and finishes telling him the story, saying that she was beaten by a scumbag and woke up in this world. She acts all cute about it, but that easily gets on Leon's nerves, so he asks her to shut up and reminds her that she's an old hag on the inside and she's giving him the creeps. Marie yells at him and reminds him that he's an old man on the inside too, so he shouldn't judge her at all. Already tired of this conversation, Leon puts that aside and asks her to help him defeat the final boss. This takes her by surprise, so Marie reminds him that at this rate, she'll die again in this world when she's executed. Leon admits that she's right about that and tells her that she probably should face the reality of her life before her second death. Marie obviously doesn't want this, so she just whines and clings on to him, calling him her brother and asking him to save her. Leon immediately pushes her away, asking her to shut up and not to call him that. Marie continues whining and says that she doesn't want to fight that monster, but Leon reminds her that she's the reason this world's timeline is messed up, so she can take responsibility by piloting the royal ship. He tells her that she's going to support Olivia, the real protagonist of this game, but Marie doesn't understand why it has to be Olivia, and tells him that he could help his sister instead. Without giving him time to respond, she runs out of the room without saying another word, clearly upset. Leon tries to stop her at first, but Bernard walks in just then to inform him that they're prepared to go into battle already. He also mentions that the nobles who responded to the king's summon have gathered, so he must go to the audience chamber. Meanwhile, Olivia and Angelica see Marie running away, but before Angelica can chase after her, Olivia stops her and asks her to stay with Leon, saying that she'll go check on Marie herself. Angelica clearly wants to go with her, but Olivia insists and reminds her that she's the only one who can help Leon. Without wasting any more time, Olivia runs after Marie on her own, knowing that she shouldn't get in their way. After all, she believes that she's not worthy of Leon, and despite how painful it is, she knew it from the beginning. She thinks that he already has Angelica, so she sees no reason to get in their way. After a while running, she finally finds Marie outside on the balcony, but she's not happy at all to see her. Marie asks her to take it back and tells her that she'll give it all back if she gives him back to her. Olivia doesn't know what she's talking about, of course, but Marie continues and tells her that she can take the prince and the other fools, as well as Kyle, and she can be the saint too, only if she gives him back. Her sudden outburst has Olivia really confused, so Marie clarifies that she's talking about Leon and asks her to give him back. As soon as those words leave her mouth, Olivia doesn't hesitate and slaps her on the face. The sudden shock caused by the slap brings back memories for Marie, because her parents hit her just like this, and it really hurts. Olivia asks her not to mock her and tells her that Leon isn't a thing and that he doesn't belong to her. The truth hurts her more than she realizes, and Olivia is aware that Leon and Angelica are a good match, which means she has to give up. Marie doesn't understand this and simply starts tearing up, realizing that this means she just lost everything she had. She thought things would go well this time, so she doesn't understand why she can't be happy. To her surprise, Carla and Kyle arrive just then, letting her know that she's not alone. Carla explains that she was really glad when she saved her back then, and seeing her work so hard made her feel like she could too, so she doesn't want her to cry anymore. Kyle also tries to comfort her in his own way, telling her that she's selfish, stubborn, and always creating work for him, but that he knows that she's actually a considerate and kind person. He admits that he was shocked when she insulted them, but he'd feel bad about leaving her without him and Carla. Marie is really moved to tears by their words, so she sincerely apologizes to both of them. Kyle and Carla accompany her back inside as they comfort her, leaving Olivia alone with an empty expression. With lifeless eyes, she stares at the empty space where Marie was a few seconds ago and calls her a liar because she hasn't lost everything at all and she has two whole people supporting her. Olivia calls her a liar again without thinking, but she quickly covers her mouth the moment she realizes what she's saying and understands that she's the one who's actually all alone and has nothing. The thought makes her cry even more, but Angelica gets there just in time to see it, and it makes her realize Olivia's always had feelings for Leon. When Olivia sees her, she quickly hides her face and tries to keep her voice neutral, saying that Marie has safely returned. She asks her not to look at her right now, but Angelica doesn't listen and stands right by her side, firmly telling her that she loves Leon. Olivia already knew this much, but to her surprise, Angelica asks her not to back down and tell him how she feels. Even though Olivia tells her that she already did, Angelica simply asks her to tell him again, because he still hasn't given her an answer. She clarifies that she'll do the same, and that she won't let him run away, so she has nothing to worry about. Olivia still hesitates and asks her if it's okay, considering that both she and Leon are nobles, which means they're a good match. Angelica scolds her and reminds her that love doesn't care about status. She then hugs her and explains that no one would suffer if giving up were easy, so all they can do is keep telling someone they love them. Olivia finally hugs her back after hearing those words, and Angelica decides to tell her that she's important to her too, so she doesn't want her to cry anymore. In the meantime, several soldiers of the principality fall dead after trying to equip the lost item because it sucks the life out of them in a matter of seconds. Having no other choice, Vandel decides to equip the magic item himself, knowing that it's all up to him now and that the Guardians can't be stopped. Garrett admits that he'd rather not weaken their main force's defenses, but he knows it can't be helped, though Vandel tells him that a hero who's lost once is hardly worth much. That aside, Garrett mentions that he seems to have finished adapting to that magic item, which is now attached to his arm. They say it grants strength at the cost of the user's life, but Vandel was the only one chosen by this power. Even Garrett is intimidated by that, but once Vandel leaves, his servant informs him that they've been contacted by Marquis Frampton of the Kingdom again. Sometime later, Frampton talks to his subordinate, Dale, and tells him that he can't believe he let Leon get away. away. Dale apologizes and explains that Leon had the king's protection, so there was nothing they could do. Frampton then asks him if he got in touch with the principality, but Dale informs him that they've tried several times and got no answer from them. Frampton is starting to get frustrated because he doesn't understand why they're still invading. They've gone far beyond the lands they agreed to cede, and they're just outside the capital now. Dale tells him that he'll try contacting them again, but Frampton stops him and places a bottle of wine on his desk, saying that it's time for him to take responsibility for his failures. Dale instantly recognizes the bottle because it's the one he tried to use to kill Leon. Frampton tells him that it's a necessary sacrifice because governing always requires sacrifices. Meanwhile, at the audience chamber, all the nobles are panicking because the enemy is right on their doorstep and they're supposed to arrive in a day or two. Frampton shows up among the nobles, and Roland mentions that apparently fewer men are loyal to the palace than he expected. Despite this, he stands up and says that those who gathered here today are true heroes. Roland then tells them that the principality's dastardly invasion must be stopped, so now is the time to put their lives on the line. He asks Leon to step forward, which takes everyone by surprise since they thought he was arrested. Without wasting any time, Roland announces that due to the threats facing the kingdom, he appoints Leon Bartfort Supreme Commander. He warns him that some will say he's too young and some won't trust his lack of experience, but he's the only one with the strength to get them out of this situation, so he wants to know if he thinks he can win this battle. Leon knows that's a dramatic way of putting it, but he doesn't hate it, so he looks the king straight in the eyes and tells him that he'll do it if that's his wish. For some reason, Roland is a bit irritated by that answer because he knows Leon is giving him a chance to shine. Leon silently complains because that was too embarrassing, and he doesn't understand why the king is so angry or why the queen's face is red. Ignoring his clear confusion, Roland composes himself and announces that he hereby appoints Viscount Leon Bartfort Supreme Commander to end the fight against the principality. Of course, Frampton intervenes and tells him that he shouldn't trust Leon because he's been accused of treason. The king doesn't say a word and lets his wife take care of things, so Mylene asks Frampton not to disgrace himself and reminds him that he's the one who fabricated Leon's crime. Frampton obviously denies it and says that he won't allow anyone to accuse him of that, even the queen. All his complaints are suddenly silenced by Leon, who fires his gun at the ceiling and asks him to shut his mouth. The moment Leon points his gun at him, Frampton orders the guards to arrest him, but to his surprise, the guards hold him instead. Leon clarifies that he's not the traitor being arrested for colluding with the principality to put the kingdom in danger. Frampton still denies it and tells him that he doesn't have any proof, so Leon tells him that he's quite disappointed. After all, he's so nice that he was willing to forgive him if he joined them in the fight. He also mentions that he has a lot of enemies, and he learned all kinds of things from dumb nobles, including those connected to him. Several said that his subordinate instructed them to assist the principality. Frampton quickly assumes that he's talking about Dale, and just then, another guard suddenly arrives to inform the king that Baron Dale took his own life. According to the note he left, he wished to atone for using Marquis Frampton's name to betray the kingdom. Frampton drops to his knees to keep up the act, saying that he had no idea he did that. Leon knows that he's just trying to place all the blame on his subordinate, though. Frampton offers his deepest apologies to the king for his subordinate's betrayal and clarifies that he knew nothing about it. Just then, Gertrude suddenly walks in, saying that he's quite the actor and letting him know that she told them all about his correspondence with the principality, including his deal to cede territory to them in exchange for peace and status. Deep down, she's doing this for the principality because she knows that eliminating the Marquis here would drastically reduce the kingdom's forces. Gertrude clarifies that such an agreement is lukewarm in the first place because the principality will defeat the kingdom on its own. She asks him why he doesn't claim the title of chancellor on his own as well, but that makes Frampton snap in anger. The moment he tries to attack her, Vince stops him and says that the rot has been cut out of the palace. Leon is glad that Vince is taking an important role in this because he knows it will restore the Redgraves as the largest faction. Feeling cornered, Frampton exclaims that he did it all for the kingdom and that it was necessary to preserve it. Leon tells him that he was betrayed by the principality and the kingdom is on the brink of annihilation because of that. Frampton silences him and asks him who he thinks has been supporting this nation, but Leon simply tells him that he unfortunately has made the wrong choice. This only increases Frampton's anger, so he yells at him and says that he won't be condemned by a boy who doesn't even understand politics. Leon clarifies that he actually has his approval because he's been supporting the kingdom until now. He really respects that and thinks that he's the best, but he reminds him that he has to take responsibility for his failures and for putting the kingdom in danger. After all, he tried to get rid of him on false charges, and he's gotten rid of plenty of others in the same way. Frampton doesn't deny it and says that they were necessary sacrifices because governing always requires sacrifices. Leon tells him that he totally agrees with that, and he knows it can't be helped since it's for the nation and they're necessary sacrifices. However, that's exactly why he should understand what he's doing right now. Frampton is about to snap again the moment he realizes, but Leon stops him in time by putting his gun into his mouth, saying that he's a nobody and that he's had enough already. He explains that they're losers they can afford to get rid of, so he hopes they'll gracefully accept their fate and won't complain, because this is what they've always done anyway. For the sake of the nation, Leon asks Frampton to let himself be the sacrifice this time and then hits him in the face with his gun, saying that he'll forgive him for picking a fight with him, but that that he'll have to atone for the rest of his crimes. Once Frampton is taken away by the guards under the Queen's orders, Leon wastes no time and tells everyone that there are a few things he should make clear now. First of all, he tells the nobles that he hates all of them and that he hates this nation as well because he has to work because of them, when they should simply pull themselves together. All the nobles are a little shocked by how blunt he is, but Leon continues and tells them that he doesn't trust them at all, and he knows that they don't trust him either. He then clarifies that anyone can take his place anytime, so if anyone thinks they can overcome this situation and lead them to victory, he invites them to step forward. As expected, nobody moves, so Leon finishes by saying that if they won't obey him, then they have to get out of here. The nobles are clearly not happy about any of this, but Leon doesn't hold back and tells them that they can't question him or talk back, because the only thing they're allowed to do is follow his orders. Leon asks them all to fight and die for him and assures them that he will save this nation.